And how will your desire for the tobacco fix cope with that?
I'm going to take up crack instead.
Stimulating late-night sporting debate for long-distance lorry drivers,
14 for the copy.
young mums,
What time do you call this? Coming on?
and students who've taken too many of those caffeine tablets.
The two mics, Parry and Graham on Talk Sport.
Look at the light!
Seen the time, by the way.
Hang on a sec. I want to talk about these raccoons. There will be a milk shortage because you cannot just turn a cow on and off.
This is Talk Sport. We are the two mics, and I'm delighted to say it's time to say a very, very, very good morning to Mr. Mike, a Porky, a Parry. Very good morning to you, Mr. Parry.
A very good morning to you, Mike, and good to be with you here in the studio.
Indeed.
Funny you should mention Pyongyang.
Yes.
Because I learned today something in one of my international journals.
Yes.
There are, in Pyongyang, in North Korea, there are only 4 officially accepted films that people in North Korea can
is that
watch
right?
from the West.
Right.
The first one is Bend It Like Beckham.
Why would they have that there?
Well, because David Beckham is the only acceptable Westerner who can be recognised as a proper person in the whole...
So do they think it's about David Beckham?
They think it's about David Beckham, yeah.
Okay.
They think it's a film about David Beckham.
All right.
So
I think he makes a brief cameo appearance.
He does make a cameo appearance.
Because old Kim Jong-un, one of his favourite films when he was in the West, was Rambo. He used to love, watching Rambo.
Yeah,
but I don't know whether they allow that one.
Yeah, no, they don't. They don't. The other 3, Bend It Like Beckham is acceptable on Korean television, and the other 3 are Home Alone, which is shown repeatedly, shown at least once a week, because it's about the decadence of the West who abandon their children.
That's right. First one's the best one.
Yes, that's right.
I would ban the other 2 as well.
Yeah. The second one is The Sound of Music.
Yeah.
Because it's all about, the fact that the West...
The Von Trapps.
Well, no, they blew themselves up by warring with each other. You know what I mean? The whole of Europe pulled itself apart by the fact that they can't get on with each other.
Yes.
And the third one, to show the incompetence of technology in the West, believe it or not, Titanic. Yeah.
Bizarre
which
choice
is shown
of film.
once a week, and then
because they can't make ships.
Yeah,
Look,
exactly.
The Westerners ships sink. I was watching, funny enough, earlier on today on the news. They had a bunch of the war games that are going on, where they've got the Americans and the South Koreans firing
I've
missiles.
seen all this,
It's like a giant dartboard where they've drawn big numbers on the hills, and they're blowing the hell out of it.
I was going to say it's a mountain range, isn't it, with all huge numbers on it, a bit like that place they have in America with all the presidents' faces on.
Well, to me it looks a bit like Mount Rushmore, but it looks to me like a driving range where you're sort of trying to hit the ball 100 yards, 200 yards, 300 yards.
And then you see 3 aeroplanes coming over, and they all release their missiles at the same time, they're all heading for the same target.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then you've got the other side, who are also having their own war games, not quite so elaborately, but they're firing loads of missiles as well.
That's right.
It's kind of a mad scene, isn't it?
It is a mad scene,
and the people in Seoul are saying, it's all very well for you lot to have these war games, but, what if they actually do fire something on us?
Yeah.
What are you going to do then?
What are you going to do then? Now, the thing is, this will all go wrong again, because, of course, this is what the Russians used to do. The Russians used to sort of show sort of propaganda films behind the Iron Curtain.
Yes.
And then when the Iron Curtain became porous by means of...
The porous Iron Curtain?
Yeah, like laptops and all that kind of stuff. When young kids in Russia started picking up on Western culture, that was the start of the end.
Yeah.
Now, this is going to happen in North Korea.
Getting
this is
across
what the
Berlin
Americans...
Wall.
Yeah, this is what the Americans are working on now. They don't so much want to wear him down militarily. They're going to have... they're going to try and create a revolution from within.
Yes.
So in addition to these 4 acceptable films, the Americans are going to make sure that thousands, even millions more films and examples of Western culture are going to be pumped into North Korea.
Well, it's much more difficult to keep that stuff out now, isn't it?
Of course it is. Of course it is.
It was one thing to keep, actual physical pieces of celluloid from passing over the border.
Right.
But now
absolutely
all you've got to do is get yourself a live stream.
Yes, that's
and
right.
Get it from somewhere.
That's right. Absolutely. And that will be the start of the end. Hopefully, say the West. Okay.
Yes.
And that will then end the last maverick state in the world. We hope this is all going to happen, according to Mr. Trump, within the next 3 years during what he calls his watch.
Well, we certainly don't want to have any kind of friction going on in any border, if it can be avoided.
Yes,
that
that's
would
right.
be good.
That's right.
Yeah.
The Titanic is also said, apart from the fact it illustrates the poor state of Western technology, they make ships that then sink, even though it was over 100 years ago.
Right.
It also says that even they might be preparing them for the worst, because I say even when terrible tragedy is upon you, the power of love between fellow human beings in adversity is stronger.
Yeah, they're saying this in Pyongyang.
They're saying it in Pyongyang,
really?
and that's what they're saying.
Sounds more like something came out of the Vatican.
No, what they're saying is, they're saying you must direct those sort of feelings of adoration to our glorious leader, Kim Jong-un.
Yes.
Because from birth, like from the very first day or hours that you're born, you know when we see all these people in North Korea who are weeping, profusely when one of their leaders dies and all that.
Yeah.
That's not actually put on.
No.
They're actually told by their parents from hour one of their life, the glorious leader is the only man who can save us. And so they really think when he dies, it's all over.
Although I was watching again an interview with one of these dissidents who had managed to get out of North Korea and into South Korea.
Yes.
Talking to one of the correspondents and saying that one of the reasons why they're all out there and proving their sort of undying love for the beloved leader is because they are under threat of sort of punishment.
That's right.
If they don't do it.
That's right.
And sometimes their kids can be taken away. Sometimes there can be murders committed.
That's right.
It's all very horrible stuff.
That's right. Now, my naval intelligence sources tell me on this very same subject that the first film the Americans managed to get into North Korea for public consumption was Saving Private Ryan.
Oh, yes.
And the reason they did...
Good film, that.
Yeah, it's a good film, yeah. And the reason they did that was after American psychologists said once the North Korean people see Saving Private Ryan, which is all about people in adversity helping each other, particularly in a military situation, they will believe the West is not as evil as Kim Jong-un has told them.
I see.
And so apparently this has now been taken up by hundreds of thousands of people. It has had the effect of blowing away propaganda that only North Korean soldiers believed in honour and brotherhood, and the West did not.
They better not show him that James Bond film, the one where the guy gets the diamonds in his face.
Yes.
Because he's one of the Korean guys, isn't he?
He's one of the Korean guys, and also wasn't the bloke who disappeared through the roof of James Bond's car a Korean bloke as well?
I think he may have been.
He was.
They haven't been portrayed as particularly good, decent people in various Bond films.
One intelligence report back from a North Korean soldier says, the more I was exposed to foreign films from the West, the more I questioned all I had been told about my existence.
Right.
Even the thickest walls come tumbling down eventually.
Well, there we are. Well, that's the Cultural Revolution. Maybe we should send him over a couple of Two Mics DVDs.
I think we should.
One from the Hen and Chickens and the other one from Edinburgh.
We could also send them a few boxes of Mike Parry Porky scratchings. Porky Parry scratchings.
I don't know if they eat those, do they?
Those have, I'll tell you what, they've caused a revolution in the Midlands this week. I've been up there to our stand at the National Exhibition Centre today.
When you say our stand?
Yeah. Well, my stand.
Your stand.
My stand.
Pictures of you all over the place. I can see that.
There are.
Your face about 12 feet high.
There's huge pictures.
Shocking.
Huge banners and huge pictures of me all over the place. And I did invite you to come, but for some reason...
Well, I wasn't able to.
You turned it down.
Yeah, I wasn't able to. I had other things to do.
I got mobbed on the...
Mobbed?
Yeah.
I saw a picture of you with one person.
Well, that's because they were all in a queue. And we had to do it one by one to get in front of my huge
picture. Did they all stand
picture.
right behind each other so you could only see one of them?
No.
Like one of those Madonna pieces of, what do you call it, choreography?
No, they stood out of view so that we had a, like Premier League footballers stand in a certain area after the game to be interviewed because of all the sponsors.
The mix zone,
the mix zone, all the sponsors' logos.
Yeah.
Well, our logo is my face, my huge face. And so one by one they stood in front of there and took the pictures. It was a great visit.
So it went well. The pictures look good, actually. I must say, you look quite good in them.
We went a few years ago to the NEC and drove around on monkey bikes.
Yeah, we did, yeah.
Well, I'm not sure how
you keep calling them that. Is that what they're called?
Yeah, they're called monkey bikes. Yeah, little bikes, yeah. No, I'm not sure how we got into it that day. I remember we walked a hell of a long way because you were carrying something very heavy. I don't know what it was.
Well, we all were. We checked into this hotel, which you told me, and the guy who used to work here, who is now in, if he's not, he should be serving time at Her Majesty's pleasure.
Yes.
For various infractiones that he'd committed around the world.
Yeah.
But he supposedly knew the place. He was from Birmingham, right?
Yeah.
And he said the best way to get to the NEC is to walk this way around the back of the hotel.
That's right.
Which we then did, but we were walking for about 45 minutes.
Yeah, we were, yeah. And
carrying some heavy equipment.
Huge,
I don't know what we were carrying.
But anyway, today I went up on the train, right, and I got off at Birmingham International.
Yes.
It's the longest walk I've ever taken from the station to my location.
Is it?
I would have got a cab if I'd have known.
Right.
It was incredible.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that there was lots of ups and downs and walkways, none of which worked.
Well, that's the trouble with these places.
The escalators didn't work.
We haven't really told the story, which we might tell in a moment because we're just about out of time.
Yeah.
Of how we sort of didn't quite find each other at West Ham the other day.
Well,
before we finally did.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And also we've got somebody has been quoting you on Twitter as well. Quite a lot of quotes from you on Twitter actually today. Yes.
Yeah. Well, you see, I do have a view on things in life which people are starting to take more and more seriously.
They are. I think I've helped you with that because I've basically legitimised some of your mad ideas and turned you back into the journalist that you once were when we first met.
Some of the ideas which you have previously called mad have been found to be very, very sound judgments and arguments.
Well, we may have a different view on that. However, we are the two mics. This is Talk Sport. Porkyvision later on. Mark Donaldson coming up to talk football in a little while. This is Talk Sport.
The Two Mics, simulcast across the UK on Talk Sport and Talk Radio.
Hey! The sun goes down like a bad dream. You end up tight, gotta let off steam. They say they can break you again and again. If life is a radio, turn up to 10. These are crazy, 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 crazy nights. These are crazy, 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 crazy nights.
This is Talk Sport. Very good point here from Maxwell.
Yeah.
This is North Korea will soon be banning Home Alone when they realise Donald Trump is in it.
Well, he's in Home Alone too, wasn't
Which
he?
he is, of course. There's the picture, yeah. Because
in
it was during the period when he owned the Plaza Hotel.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, but wasn't that Home Alone 2?
I think it might be,
Because remember, in Home Alone 2, he shacked up in a suite in the Plaza.
In the Plaza, yeah.
And,
and those crazy guys are still trying to get him.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, and that's when Trump appears.
Yes, that's right.
But that's very true, yeah. And in fact, I mentioned earlier the other two. There's another three, I think, Home Alone movies. Here's one from Steve the cabbie. He's very rude about you. He says, North Koreans are allowed to listen to the two mics. They wish to show the incompetence of Mike Parry as a presenter.
I think that's brilliant.
That's very harsh.
Yeah.
And there's a great one here from EDO. He says, possibly the next trip with Sir Rod Stewart. And there's a picture of the three of us getting out of his plane with the Celtic flag at Pyongyang Airport.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Well, I mean, that would bring about a world peace, wouldn't it? Anybody who went to a Rod Stewart concert would immediately become a nice person.
Well, you think, a Rod Stewart concert, a bit of comedy from us.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, that's how you stop world wars, isn't it?
Yes, that's how you stop world wars. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. Jacob says, our logo is my huge face. He says, oh, don't be so harsh on yourself.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I meant my normal face, which is of normal size, but on a huge poster.
Yeah. I want to read this out as well. We got it just before the show started. It's from Mangan. It says, just flew past Porky's favourite city on my way to Seoul. And, of course, he's shown a map here on his plane where he's flying past Ulaanbaatar.
Good God.
In Mongolia. Yeah. Looks a very dangerous route to fly, that,
very dangerous
he's
to me,
flying
indeed,
from the inside Russia down to down through Ulaanbaatar, Beijing, and down into South Korea to Seoul.
Absolutely.
Blimey.
Shocking.
Good luck with that.
You see, it was only when I pointed out to you earlier that there's a May Day bank holiday coming up next Monday.
Did you?
Yeah.
I thought I pointed it out to you.
Well, you may have done, but I mean, the point is that changes the whole ball game for the weekend.
Does it?
Because there might be a mission north, you see, on Sunday.
We were talking about the possibility of you going to see Everton and Chelsea, which will be. I mean, I quite agree with you to say this could be the game of the year.
Could be.
Because I mean,
could be the game changer.
If Everton beat Chelsea, and Tottenham beat Arsenal, suddenly there's a 1 point game.
Well, that's absolutely right.
Deal, isn't it?
And look at Everton's home record. It's outstanding.
Pretty good.
Beaten once.
Only by Liverpool.
By Liverpool, and that was in the 93rd minute, and that was a game that should have been drawn.
Well, they all count, don't they? It doesn't matter when
maybe Everton should have got something. But I mean, it's going to be a huge challenge for Chelsea. Yeah. And as you quite rightly say, at the moment, you would bet that Tottenham would beat Arsenal, wouldn't you? Because of the relative
you say that, but it's a
runs
bit,
of form.
It's a bit like the old firm derby that we saw last weekend. I mean, form goes out the window, doesn't it? And Arsenal managed to win last night against Leicester, which has done them no end of good. Now suddenly people are saying, do you think it's possible that Arsenal, with all these games in hand, can actually get themselves back into the top four? I mean, if they end up in the top four again at the end of this season, that will be some achievement, will it not?
Well, the FA Cup final and the top four again is something that most fans of most other clubs would settle for, wouldn't they?
Well, I would have thought so. But, I mean, what it will mean is that once again, despite all the almost trying to sort of snatch defeat from the jaws of victory, Arsene Wenger's pulled it off again.
Yes, no,
that's what it will mean.
I know.
I mean, they're now sixth, right? Yep. They've played 32 games. So you look at Liverpool with 66 points. So they can catch them. They can leapfrog over Manchester City. They could leapfrog over Manchester United. I mean, they're both playing tonight.
Yeah.
So they both get a point.
Yeah, I totally agree with all of that. But of course, it's all kind of relative, isn't it?
Well, it is.
I think what the interesting thing about it, I loved Eriksen's goal last night against Crystal Palace because 8 minutes to go, he suddenly decided, look, we've got to have a crack from this sort of distance.
Well, they've got to get the 3 points.
Yes,
they needed the 3 points.
That's right, and they're very aware of it, aren't they? So I thought that was a really good indication of the way they're all playing.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't go cautious. They didn't think about, we could lose possession if I attempt a shot from in, a goalkeeper collects it or something like that. It was really positive stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if I was Chelsea now, I'd be more nervous than I would be if I'm a Spurs fan for obvious reasons.
I think you're absolutely right.
Because Chelsea have it all to lose and Spurs have it all to win.
There's only one certainty right now, I think, in the Premier League, and I'm sure you would agree. Sunderland are down.
Oh, yeah.
21 points.
Yeah, of course they are, yeah.
I mean, there's now 6 points between them and Middlesbrough, the next team up.
Yes, that's absolutely true, but they have been down for some time.
No, I think now definitely you can say it.
Yes, of course you can, yeah. Now the highlight for me of the sporting day today, or last sporting 24 hours, is, of course, the return of Maria Sharapova.
Well, it would be. It would be if, in fact, she should be returning. But she said that she was very nervous. She was very happy that she managed to win her first game in the wild card event that she's in is it Frankfurt?
In straight sets.
In straight sets.
That's right.
She shouldn't be playing, though, should she? I mean, it's another Jerry Barton situation.
No, she should be.
She should not be playing.
No, she's treated very harshly.
She's already had her punishment cut in half. Right, 2 years, been set down to like 12 months, 15 months. And, this is a woman who has got more money than sense, obviously. A woman who apparently knew that what she was taking was now on the banned list because she'd been receiving emails about it for some time. Yeah. And she thought that they wouldn't spot it. That would be my take on it.
I thought it was an administrative
well, that's what she says.
Mistake. And I mean, she should have been more on the ball. I accept that. But she was treated very harshly, I think. And also, I think sometimes when you weigh up these things, you've got to say, well, how much has that woman given to her game, and make that relative to whatever punishment is meted out. And if you did that in the Joey Barton situation, how much has this man given to the game? Well, actually, nothing.
Well, then you wouldn't ever have him back. You'd say, forget about 18-month ban. You have a lifetime ban.
His contribution to football has been minimal.
But also, a typical narcissist, right? He thinks it's all somebody else's fault, and he thinks he's being treated harshly because it's all about him. It's not all about him. It's all about what he did and what he continues to do, and how he has continually brought the game to disrepute. And as I said to Jason, the only thing I remember him doing recently is playing for Burnley against Lincoln, trying to stamp on somebody in the penalty area, and realising when that didn't work, that he should just try and fall over and pretend he'd been hit in the head.
Yeah, that's right.
What a complete plank.
It's a sort of standard procedure now, isn't it, that bad boys suddenly start trying to become pseudo-intellectual.
Oh, yeah.
So that we'll all forgive them and invite them onto Newsnight, and then they can present themselves as a great person.
Well, unfortunately for him, he could be a one-eyed man in the land of the blind, which I use that very carefully, given that he tried to stamp somebody's eye out. But as soon as he enters a fray where some people have actually got some real brains, then I'm afraid he made himself look a complete idiot.
Yes, I'm afraid that's the case.
A bit like Russell Brand. Who also made a fool of himself on Question Time.
Well, he makes a fool of himself every time he opens his mouth, in my view. But what I was going to say is that I don't know why anybody wants to feel sorry for Joey Barton.
I don't either.
Because he had a modicum of football talent, which was never really exercised to any sort of maximum degree. I mean, it didn't really change the world, did it, the teams he played football for?
Not at all.
He has become a multimillionaire. And on the basis of that, he is a very blessed man.
Yeah.
He's had
if you'd like to know what
existence.
If you'd like to know what's wrong with football, and people always moan about what's wrong with football, it's people like him becoming as wealthy as he has become, for having had no real discernible talent.
No, that's true.
I'm afraid. Yeah. And for behaving in a way which, in any other walk of life, would have left him going in and out of prison. Quite frankly, for most of his life.
Well, he did go out of prison.
But he came out a lot quicker than he went in.
Yeah, well, yeah, sort of. But then then it's the the sort of get onto Newsnight and start explaining. There's some very gullible people around who
Michael
provide...
Calvin, the guy who writes his autobiography, ghosted it for him, was on Hawksby and Jacobs earlier on today, saying, the thing about Joey is that, he's a very interesting person and this was his dirty little secret.
Yes.
Well, hang on a second, Michael.
Why didn't you put it in your book?
You've just written a book about the guy. Why isn't it in there?
Yeah, the book was serialised, right? And the one thing you do with the serialisation of a book, if you want to make it a bestseller, is you present something nobody else has ever known about that person. And so to be able to write the book and then blithely ignore or miss completely the fact that Joey Barton, the man he was sitting down with for hours and hours on end, was actually a gambling addict.
An addict, yeah.
You know,
a man who has no control over his own thoughts, who has no control over his own actions.
Yeah, could he not spot the fact that occasionally, you know, he was looking at a device that had an online betting situation on it or something like that?
Or that he was staring intently at the football screen or the racing screen.
Or ringing up his bookie.
Or, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, but, I mean, on the other hand, you might be a cynical person who said, well, we knew all that, but we decided not to put it in the book because it might have had a deleterious effect on his career.
Well, I mean, if that's the case, then I'm afraid the whole exercise was a sham.
Well, the whole thing is a sham.
Yes.
Surely if you need help, if you claim that you are an addict of something, you have no better opportunity than to write about it in your book.
Yes.
And you out yourself, as that guy from Northern Ireland did. Do you remember who was also interviewed at length?
Yeah, I do.
The Northern
Man
Ireland
with a very
footballer.
dark past and all that kind of stuff.
And I mean, he genuinely did want to stop doing it,
Yeah.
and he told the story in his book.
That's right.
Joey Barton clearly didn't want to stop doing it, and didn't want to tell the story in his book because it might have affected his commercial opportunities.
That's right. George Best, on the other hand, kept letting people write books for money on his addiction to drink and sex because he was quite happy to keep going.
Yeah, exactly.
He liked being addicted to sex and drink.
Well, some people do,
and he didn't want to change it.
Some people do.
We're all addicts, you know. In the end, we're all addicts to something.
Yeah.
And the idea that, you know, you can't do anything with addiction is rubbish. When you're an addict to something, you have to exercise control over that addiction.
Yes.
So, for instance, you know, in your case or my case, it could easily have been alcohol.
Yes.
During the years when we were feckless and that sort of thing, fancy free,
footloose and fancy free.
But you have to keep control of it.
Yes.
You know, other people can be addicted to sex.
Yeah.
Like
Michael Douglas,
and they go off to clinics.
A load of cobblers, that is.
Exactly.
Pardon the pun.
Go off to clinics in
I can't
Arizona.
stop having sex with beautiful women.
Yeah, I can't stop having sex with women. Yeah, I'm addicted to it. Yeah, that's terrible, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, what a terrible thing to do. You might even, one of these days,
It's the ultimate middle-class problem, though,
wear yourself out or something like that. But anyway, we're all addicted to something.
Yeah.
For instance...
I've seen The Time. I'm addicted to The Time.
I'm going to tell you about
we haven't got time for that.
A great guy called Max Hooper. He had a very strange addiction, but a very, very useful one for the world.
All right, I'll give you a couple of quick tweets then in that case.
Okay.
Mark says, another thing worth mentioning is the Spurs win on Sunday. They will finish over Arsenal for the first time in 27 years. Hashtag pressure.
Yeah.
And Lord Matthew doesn't seem to have quite got his head around this. He says, Sunderland are not down until it is mathematically possible. I would argue this with anyone, including Porky.
Yeah.
Well, I think you mean mathematically impossible, don't you?
Exactly.
So I don't think you've got to start arguing with either
sorry,
of us,
but the
to be honest.
game's up there.
Yeah, the game is up, and so are you. This is TalkSport.
Yes. Pyongyang.
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 Pyongyang. Now, I'm going to show you a picture because I'm sure you'll like this. What do you make of that picture there? This is a picture I'm showing you of it's a new Jaguar commercial, right?
Yes.
And it's got the models from Victoria's Secret.
Yes.
It's got a helicopter.
Yes.
And it's got a black F-Pace Sport.
No, it's not. That's not an F-Pace, mate. That's an XJ. It's not, honestly. It's an XJ.
No, that's an F-Pace.
It's not.
I promise you.
It's an XJ saloon.
It's all about the F-Paces. That's what it is.
They're not two F-Paces in that. The white one's an F-Pace. The blue one isn't.
Oh, they are. What's that?
That is, but that's the back of another car. That's not the same car.
Okay.
No, believe me, I know my Jaguars because I've been looking around a Jaguar showroom actually just last week. Yeah.
What, you're going to get a Jaguar now?
Well, I can't say too much.
For heaven's sake.
I can't say too much.
What's that there?
What? That's an F-Pace.
That is an F-Pace.
And two very attractive ladies sitting on the bonnet.
Anyway, I tweeted it out earlier, but I know since you don't bother reading anybody's Twitter except your own.
No, I do.
That you might not. Since I thought you didn't say anything about it.
I do. Because you pointed out earlier, didn't you, that Joey Barton once sought my advice.
Well, he did.
On betting
well, it's quite
situations
interesting.
in FA.
All the way back in 2012.
Yes.
Where you appear to be advising him that he's not allowed to bet on football games in which he or any of his mates are playing in.
That's absolutely true.
Which is obviously the rule.
Yes.
And that's 5 years ago.
Yes, it is 5 years ago.
Now, these betting slips go back quite a few years. We know that.
Yes.
So for a guy to make out that he didn't know or that somehow he made a mistake.
Yeah.
And, I mean, you can make a mistake, as many people have said, once or twice, or maybe even 3 times, or maybe even 4 times, but not thousands and thousands of times.
You see, this idea about, I didn't bet on myself and all that, footballers can have influence on footballers both in their team and not in their team. Because
but he also made at least one bet, to my knowledge, in a game that he was playing in about who was going to score the first goal. Now, are you telling me that he's playing in a game he has no influence over that?
I mean, look, take it like this. He's in the penalty area, he's in the clear, he's beaten the goalkeeper. He can then put his foot on the ball, summon his mate forward and say, put it over the line, I've bet on you.
Or he can also somehow allow one of the players from the opposition team to score a goal, which he would otherwise have stopped.
Could do, in all sorts of ways. And remember that football's a very transient industry, so a player who he might have played with for 5 years might now be playing for the opposition.
Yeah.
So that in itself has to be brought into play.
Sure.
All this was highlighted a few years back when Matthew Le Tissier innocently wrote a book, right?
It's about the throw-ins.
About the throw-ins. But I mean, it was so innocent. He wrote, he wrote it as a laugh and said, we played games with each other in the dressing room. It wasn't a betting coup or anything like that.
No.
It was it was a footballer's game, really.
But there are people who are unscrupulous enough, and you might go back to play parts of the Far East where they find all these betting syndicates, where they will start books on things. I mean,
of course
you'll have spoken to people, as I have, when you describe the kind of betting syndicates that go on in places like Indonesia, places like Singapore, and all of these, where they will basically bet on anything.
Oh, that's right, absolutely.
And you can walk into a betting shop there and bet on absolutely anything.
Absolutely right. And funny enough, when Matt realised the implications of what he was sort of writing about, he actually then clarified it, and it wasn't in any way an attempt to gain money off a bookkeeper or anything like that. You know what I mean?
Right.
And he was never done for it because there was nothing in it, and it was the way it was written, really, rather than anything else.
Yeah.
But I mean, what I'm saying is, from that very incident, the FA became alerted to what you've just said, that there could be people watching this in Hong Kong who suddenly see that the first throw-in was after 32 seconds, exactly as they'd predicted, and something very fishy was going on,
Very, very strange. Steve says this, it's a good job Porky doesn't have a betting addiction if his predictions are anything to go by.
Well, yeah, I'd be bankrupt, wouldn't I suppose? Some would say. But I get quite a bit right. I haven't got any addictions. I mean, if I had an addiction...
Well, you said we've all got addictions.
We all have got addictions. If I was addicted to anything, I'm addicted to work because I like working. And I feel better and safer and more comfortable when I'm working than when I'm not.
Which makes you a workaholic. Well,
no, it doesn't. No.
Well, it's the same thing, isn't it? If you're addicted
not
to
really.
work.
What would you say you're addicted to?
I'm addicted to all sorts of things.
Yeah. Some of which we shouldn't talk about, I
would say I'm addicted to having a good time.
Having a good
in
time,
life.
Yeah, I would say that's a pretty
and that may be a chemical imbalance in my body. You see, because I was listening to a couple of people earlier during the day talking about all sorts of things, and how certain highs that you get are things that you can get artificially, or things that you can get from certain behaviours,
right?
And sometimes that the release of endorphins or whatever it is that you can get, you maybe seek out the things that let that happen.
Right. Okay.
But now, it's quite a good addiction to have because it's not particularly destructive.
Indeed. Now then, I have some messages here. First of all, Steve the Cabbie says, I think Porky will be big in North Korea and China and Mongolia. Big everywhere, basically, which is a bit harsh.
Right.
And then Luxury Lizzie, of course, who's a regular correspondent.
Yes.
She says she's sick of all the names which get attached to me, like Porky and all this kind of stuff. So she says in future, she's suggesting you should be known as Gorgeous Graham.
Gorgeous Graham?
Yeah.
Well, I don't object to that.
Well, she's put your first name in Gorgeous Mike Graham.
Yeah.
I suppose for alliteration, we could call you Gorgeous
Graham.
But
I mean, of course, there is only one Gorgeous in this organisation, which is now at Talk Radio, Gorgeous George Galloway.
Absolutely.
I don't think I wish to put myself up against Gorgeous George.
No, I don't think you would. But anyway, she says that our lady listeners need to take a vote on that one, okay?
Now, look at this from a guy called Eastern Eagle. There are no betting shops in Singapore or Indonesia. Idiots. Really? Is that right?
What's that?
He says there are no betting shops in Singapore or Indonesia.
Oh, come off it.
Don't be so ridiculous.
Have you never been down to a cellar bar in Singapore, mate, and seen the people smoking their crack pipes and putting their bets on illegally around a table?
And if by no betting shops in Singapore or Indonesia, you idiots, do you mean there are no official betting shops? Then you may well be right.
Yeah.
That's not what we're referring to.
No, exactly.
Los Plankovic.
Exactly.
Donovan says, Barton is an utter disgrace to his profession. Good riddance to him. There you go.
Here's Michael. He says, hi, guys. Can you just let Porky know that, well, I don't know what he wants me to know, not you, that your podcasts are getting me through my training for the 3 Peaks Challenge. Love the show.
Okay.
The 3 Peaks, is that something in Derbyshire?
Must be in the Peak District, mustn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
How about this from James? Great discussion, lads, until Porky welcomes back a drugs cheat with open arms. Well, that's
Who?
the thing. You.
Oh.
Because you went with after this conversation.
No,
about
hang on. She's served a penalty.
She's
paid,
a drugs cheat.
She's paid her debt to society.
No, she hasn't actually.
And she's now back.
No, but they reduced her penalty, and they've now given her entry as a professional player into a tournament that she should not qualify for.
Yes.
And her fellow professionals, including Eugenie Bouchard and several other very, very top tennis players, have said she should have to fight her way back in. She should not be presented with the ability to play in the tournament.
There's some miserable people around. World number 5, Simona Halep, said, in my opinion, for kids and young players, it's not okay to help with wild cards the players who were banned for doping.
Yeah, well, that's true.
I don't think she was banned for doping. I think she was banned for a mistake.
No, she was banned for using a banned substance, i.e., which was against the World Anti-Doping Authority and its list. So, therefore, she was banned for doping.
But there's absolutely no evidence whatsoever that it was performance-enhancing on the occasion she mistakenly took it after it was banned.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter.
Well, it didn't performance-enhance her before it was banned.
That doesn't matter.
It was just a piece of paper. One day it was legal, the next day it was banned.
No, the bottom line is it's on the banned list for a reason, right? Now, you might say that very many things that are on the banned list are not performance-enhancing particularly, but they must be if they're aiding her to play tennis. And so either it's on the banned list or it's not. And if it's on the banned list, you can't take it.
Yeah, well, I think that because of the special circumstances surrounding Maria Sharapova, she should be admitted back into the game.
Special circumstances being that she's tall, blonde and Russian.
No.
What then?
That she's a winner of 6 Grand Slams.
Oh, she's good for the box office.
She's not only good for the box office. She's an outstanding and distinguished tennis player, and they should be welcomed back into the game. There aren't enough of them. Okay.
Really? So, so if somebody is more successful than somebody who's less successful, they should be given entry back to the game sooner rather than later. Well, in your view.
Well,
that's what you've just said.
I didn't really say that. Now, listen, just very quickly, I want to ask you these because I love taking your views on these. Okay.
Right.
A list has been published of 50-somethings, which you and I will both admit to, okay?
Well, I certainly will. I don't know about you.
No, I do.
Well, you're 50-something, are you?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Still?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
So like one of those women that never turns 40.
No, you're talking about Nancy Delolio, who appears to have been
one of them.
45.
I've been out with a couple of them.
Yeah. But here we go. Look, the top 10 movies that we should have seen, okay? Grease.
Grease I've seen.
Indiana Jones.
Yes.
E.T.
E.T., yes.
Life of Brian.
Yes.
Star Wars.
Yes.
One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Yes.
Back to the Future.
Yes.
Saturday Night Fever.
Yes.
Godfather.
Yes.
Blues Brother.
Yes.
You won't believe it. I've seen all of those. I've seen all of those.
You've seen all of them?
I've seen all those,
That's astonishing.
I know, it is astonishing.
That is astonishing.
Actually, it says Indiana Jones series, so you've got to see all the Indiana Jones series, yeah.
Well, I think I have seen all of them, except for maybe the most recent one. Actually, no, I have, because the most recent one hasn't come out yet.
I've seen them all. That's brilliant. I'm very pleased with that.
What's your favourite one, then?
Out of all of those?
Yeah.
Oh.
No, I mean out of the Indiana Jones series.
Oh, Indiana Jones, the one where the
one where he's running out of the cave.
No, the one that starts with the bottle of the magic fluid on the dance floor, and they end up in that aeroplane where they have to jump out with just a lifeboat to land on the top of the mountain and come skidding down the mountain. Okay.
Oh, I don't know that one.
Yeah, no, you do.
Have I not seen that one?
Yeah, well, it's one of the later ones. It's where he literally falls through all the verandas when he comes out the building and ends up in the car. And the little fella has to have the blocks on the pedals in the car to drive him to the airport, you know?
Okay.
Yeah, it's great.
Sounding vaguely familiar.
Yeah. But anyway, now then, TV shows.
Yeah.
Only Fools and Horses.
Does this count if you only just seen, say, one episode?
Well, you've got to sort of know about it.
I mean, I've seen a few, but I've told you before, I sort of missed that period because I was in America, but yes.
Yeah, Only Fools and Horses, Fawlty Towers, Blackadder,
yes.
Dad's Army,
yes.
Vicar of Dibley.
Vicar of Dibley, not so much.
I like that a lot.
I didn't really like that.
Star Trek,
yes.
Two Ronnies, Doctor Who, Emmerdale.
See, Emmerdale, no. I've never watched Emmerdale.
I've seen a few episodes, but not many.
Never watched Emmerdale.
Never really been a big fan of Doctor Who. And then Steptoe's Son.
Steptoe's Son, yes. So these are all things that you're supposed to have seen for what purpose?
Well, they
just to prove that you're somehow...
No, they've got to be really in your sort of locker of favourites. You see what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, in that case, I would say... to Doctor Who, not particularly. I mean, I've watched a lot of Doctor Who more than I'd like to because my kids always wanted to watch it.
Yeah, okay, sure.
But I watched it as a child.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, just worries, just this final list, okay? And I haven't got any of these. Right. Health.
Do I worry about my health?
Yes.
No.
No, do I?
What do you mean you don't worry? You're nearly dead. You should worry about it.
Yeah, but I've got through it now. So I've been...
So now you don't worry about it?
No, I don't. No, I've had a bonus 10 or 12 years, so that's fine. No problem. Well,
hang on. You moaned about your sciatica. You moaned about your dodgy back, your dodgy knee.
No.
You know, you were worried about.
Not at all.
Didn't you go in and have some test done on your throat? I mean, all sorts of stuff
No,
going
but
on.
my deal with the Almighty is now sealed. It's not a problem.
Okay.
Right, saving money.
Saving money? No.
Yeah, well, I do.
I don't save money.
Financial security.
No.
No, it's very big on my list. That's very big.
Yeah.
Your partner's health.
Partner's health, obviously, yes.
Well, obviously, yes.
Yeah.
Of course
you
you would. Anybody
would.
would.
Sick.
Have you got a decent pension?
I have, actually.
Have you?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Well, I've made provisions for that.
Because I had 10 very good years
Yeah.
of making pension contributions from my 2 Fleet Street
Good
jobs.
man. A daily worry of paying the bills?
No.
No, I don't worry about that either.
No.
Retirement?
Retirement, no.
No, I'm never going to retire.
Right.
Right.
I mean, you may be retired, like you'd be forced into it, like Jerry Barton.
Oh, absolutely, but
You
it
know.
won't be voluntary.
No.
Changes in your body as you get older. Huh?
What,
Yeah.
you mean like getting fat?
Well, I think so,
Well,
yeah.
I don't worry about it.
And 2 more very quickly. Helping your children.
Yeah, I don't worry about it, I just do it.
And, of course, your children's health, which, of course, everybody worries
Of course,
about. Yeah.
absolutely right.
So there you go. You passed the test.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
This is Talk Sport. This is Talk Sport. We are the 2 mics. Coming up a little bit later on, Porkyvision, of course. Lots and lots of tweets coming in. Bob in Sheffield says if Sharapova had a face like Barton, Porky would be saying banner for life.
Oh, a bit harsh,
That's a bit
eh?
harsh, but it could well be true. Let's talk to Mark Donaldson from ESPN, because there's lots to talk about and not that much time to do it in. Mark, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, gentlemen. How are you both?
Very good indeed,
Very
thank you.
well indeed. Now, let's kick off with the football from last night, because Tottenham, thankfully, have managed to keep it all going. Because for those of us who are what you would describe as neutrals, you want it to go down to the wire, don't you?
You do. 4 points. Obviously, Chelsea with a better and easier fixtures, it looks like on paper. But Spurs, that was a good win.
Sorry. Chelsea going to Everton on Sunday. 2:05 kickoff. Portmeister sitting there, waving my Everton flag. You think that's an easy fixture? You've been in America too long, Mark.
Wait till you hear who Spurs have got.
Yeah. Just hold the horses a second, Mr. Porky.
Yes.
They lose at Goodison. They're still clear. Even if Spurs win, they're still a point clear.
1 point. 1 point.
No, yeah, but look at the fixtures. And if Everton win, I mean, there's still an outside chance that they could get European football next season. And obviously now with the FA Cup final set, 7th will probably be good enough to get into Europe. So there's still something to play for. And they're 14 points clear of West Brom, so they've got a bit of leeway if 7 places or 7 teams do get in.
Yeah.
But look, it's tough. There's no doubt about it. And this stage of the season, you get silly results. You get teams who are at the top of the table dropping points to teams near the foot of the table. If you'd said a month ago that Crystal Palace would have taken 10 points out of 15 with these fixtures, everyone would have said you're crazy. But they did.
I agree, but, going to Goodison, if you look at Everton's record this season, at Goodison Park, it's Fortress Goodison.
Might be, but Chelsea aren't.
What do you mean, might be? It is. Have you not looked at the facts, my friend?
But Chelsea are a better team than Everton, because they're ahead of them in the table. Now, Chelsea's record at Goodison, I'll grant you, it is not good. I mean, they've only won once there since the end of 2012. I think that was that 6-3 game. And the last time they were there in the FA Cup, they got chased.
That's right.
In March 2016. So it's not an easy place for Chelsea to go. Here's one. If I say to you, you pair on Antonio Conte, and I'm going to offer you a point from the trip at the weekend to Goodison, who's taking it and who's not?
Who's what, sorry? I didn't understand.
Are you taking the point? If you're Antonio Conte,
yes.
the pair of you, are you taking the point right now if offered?
You would, definitely. You'd have to.
I think I would take the point as
Yeah,
well.
you'd have to.
I would too. I would as well, yeah.
Yes, that's right, yeah. So then that would give them just a 2-point advantage, wouldn't it?
No, they're 7 clear just now. They're 7 clear and sorry, they're 4 clear.
4,
Yeah,
exactly.
they're 4
4.
clear.
So they dropped 2 at Goodison, and providing Spurs win, it's a 2-point advantage.
It would be a 5-point advantage until Spurs play Arsenal, because Everton Chelsea is before.
Yes, and Spurs Arsenal.
And also, Spurs Arsenal is not a foregone conclusion. Arsenal could. I mean, everybody thought Manchester City were going to lord it over Arsenal in the FA Cup semi-final. Arsenal somehow managed to get past them and into the final. I wouldn't suggest for a minute that the Arsenal Tottenham game won't end in a draw. This is probably the most likely result, Mark, isn't it?
Yeah. And you look at Chelsea's 5 remaining fixtures, right? They go to Everton.
Yeah.
Now, okay, say we'll give them a point right now, and the gap is narrowed. Middlesbrough at home, they ain't slipping up there. West Brom away, doubtful that they'd slip up there. Watford at home and Sunderland at home.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
That's a guaranteed 12 points.
From them.
I accept that's a guaranteed 12 points, except for the fact that within the last month they got beaten at home by Crystal Palace. So nothing's guaranteed, is it?
No, you look at some of these results in Europe. You see some of the Spanish clubs. Now, granted, Real Madrid and Barca did well yesterday, your time, today, our time. But you look back a couple of weeks and you get some silly results. You get Barca struggling. You get Real Madrid struggling as well. Yeah. It's just nerves. And that's the thing. But Chelsea have been over the course. A lot of these players have been over the course before. And by the way, I was looking at, I just love the fact that Spurs are winning games like that at Palace, when last season they probably would have thrown them away. Their last 4 games in the Premier League, they failed to win any of them. There seems to be more of a kind of hardcore across and throughout that team this season, and hopefully it'll take it to the final day.
Yes, you're absolutely right. I'll tell you one thing that's really interesting, Mark, which you may have passed you by over there, but Chelsea have just won the FA Youth Cup for the 4th consecutive season.
Yep.
I mean, it's astonishing, isn't it? That they've won it for the 4th consecutive season, and yet how many young Chelsea players have we seen pushing themselves into first-team contention?
Although I listened to Tony Cascarino talking about this the other day, earlier on yesterday, I think it was, who said that basically a lot of the kids that come through the Chelsea youth system end up playing football for other football clubs.
They do.
So while they don't end up playing for Chelsea, their job is to sort of, make them into professional footballers, I guess.
Yes.
What do you think, Mark?
And that's right, because I think this season they've got around 30. It's usually just less than or just more than 30 players out on loan. There's nothing against them doing that.
No.
I mean, they're getting game time elsewhere, and then they cherry pick the best that they want to bring back. But as far as the kind of young English kids that they've got, Ainas played a couple of games this season. Chalobah has played 8 times. Ake hasn't played much in the league. Obviously, he was on loan at Bournemouth. Loftus-Cheek is probably the one you would say they've got the highest hopes for, the kind of midfielder, the 21-year-old. But for the rest of them, I mean, look at Batshuayi. He's come from a club where he was playing week in, week out, and he's hardly getting any game time this year from the start.
Right. Exactly right. Now, I know that Mr. Parry's eagerly anticipating your answer on this one, but Matthias has tweeted us and says he's watching it, but could we still get some updates on the Celtics against the Bulls? Because obviously the NBA is in full swing.
Yeah, and they've come back. The Bulls are playing the Celtics tonight in Game 5. No Rajon Rondo, the former Celtics players who now plays for the Bulls. He's injured. They hope to have him back for Game 6. Yeah. But the Bulls have an early 10-4 lead. I know you love your American sports, Mr. Parry.
Yeah, that will end up 111, 107. That'll be the end.
So you're calling it for the Chicago Bulls?
By the way, that's a lot. That's a lot of away goals.
Yeah,
7 away goals.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
very good.
That's what
now,
I think.
what about the baseball? The baseball season's up and running as well. What's going on there?
Yeah, I mean, the issue just now over the last, 24, 48 hours has been the weather, because the Red Sox are meant to be playing the Yankees. So here's what happens. Yesterday they were meant to be playing, but it was washed out. So today it's a double header between the Red Sox and the Yankees. So that's what they do. The Yankees are 2-0 up in the top of the 6th.
In the first game.
Okay, what's the reaction over there, Mark, to Maria Sharapova's return? You know, a very welcome return to tennis.
Not in my case.
This woman is a giantess of the game, and I thought she was treated very harshly when she was given that summary ban. And I'm delighted to see her back. I hope you feel the same, because you are a guest on our show.
What are you now? What are you, the Kim Jong-un of Talk Sport? Nobody's allowed to have a different view from the leader.
Yes.
She served her time. Obviously, the ban was going to be longer, but it's not the case.
Yes.
To be fair, in Stuttgart, the response she got from the crowd, I think, was probably better. I think she probably had a sleepless night last night after everything that happened. But I think the response from the crowd was pretty good. I'm just looking forward to end of August, start of September. A crowd in Stuttgart, slightly different from a US Open crowd here in New York.
It is, and also slightly different from a French Open crowd, because there's word that she may get a wild. I think if she gets a wild card into the French Open, I think that is maybe a step too far. Don't you think that's going to see a bit more kind of resistance?
Depends what she does between now and then. I mean, we're not too far away. French Open starts next month, so I think I want to see some form from her. I mean, if she does well in Stuttgart and then the tournaments before the French, then she could argue that she deserves a wild card. Look, the bottom line is it all depends who's making the decision on the wild card. If it's a pro-Sharapova person or a group of people, she gets in. If not, then, look, she knew what she was doing. It was illegal. She got caught. Same as Joey Barton with the betting. You can argue all you want. They knew what they were doing, and they've been punished.
I know, and they should be punished, and they should be punished for the length of time that they were originally punished for, as opposed to, we'll just let you off a little bit because we need you back in the game because the sponsors are calling for it, and also Serena Williams is going to be out for a bit, so we could do a bit of glamour. I mean, it is very, very bald-faced cynicism, I'm afraid, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, the other thing is as well, we've seen it with kind of flippant appeals. I don't think it happens enough. Look, Celtic played the system, played it fine when Scott Brown got to play on a technicality because they didn't hear the appeal.
And what a game he had, by the way.
Sorry?
What a game he had. We were there.
Yeah, he was outstanding. He was outstanding. But the issue I've got, if you appeal against something, most of the time it's done to try and cut something in half. Very rarely do you get your fine or your ban extended. So for that kind of flippancy, I think you should get extension of a ban if it's deemed that you're just doing it. This has nothing to do with Scott Brown because they played the system very well as everyone else would. But I think there comes a time whereby if it's just an appeal for an appeal's sake to allow you to play in a game, then I think there has to be a tendency to be able to extend the ban as well.
I think you're absolutely right. Finally, we've only got about a minute, Mark, but the Manchester Derby tonight, live on TalkSport. What do you think is going to happen there?
I think Silva's an issue. I think he's a big key player for Man City. I think City will win. I'm just looking forward for the rest of the season. When Gabriel Jesus is back fit, Pep Guardiola said he probably could play the pair of them together. But if you do, who misses out? Because he kind of comes in from the left, Gabriel Jesus. That's kind of Leroy Sané's position. They might have to play a lot narrower. He'll not start against Manchester United, Gabriel Jesus, but I don't think there's any reason why Aguero and Jesus can't play together for the rest of the season.
You could be absolutely right. And by the way, old Mike Graham and I had some square sausage for breakfast last Sunday morning.
Did you have brown sauce or red sauce?
I had brown sauce with the square sausage in Glasgow. It was rather nice.
A bit of a slight Edinburgh move there, Mark, from Mr. Parry. I had no sauce at all because I was
you can't put vinegar on a square sausage, and I hope you washed it down with a glass of Iron Brew from a glass bottle, not a plastic bottle.
We couldn't do it.
Fizz, actually.
Thank you very much indeed. That, of course, was Mark Donaldson from ESPN. We got loads more coming up, including Porkyvision, next on TalkSport. This is TalkSport. We are the two mics, and of course, there's lots more for us to talk about. Funnily enough, I've got there's a new phrase that I wanted to introduce you to.
A new phrase,
something I spotted a little bit earlier on.
Oh yeah, what is it?
It's something called. It's not email. It's called ego mail.
Ego mail.
Ego mail. And I thought this is something that I'd be surprised if you haven't sort of picked up on. And it's basically the art of sending emails within the office in order to either big yourself up or to put another colleague down.
Why would I big myself up?
Well, I'm not sure that you would.
Yes.
But what I'm saying to you is that this is something which is now being put down as a sort of phenomena. Because you know how sometimes people will send emails in an internal scenario?
Yes.
And depending on who's copied in, it can be very interesting, because
indeed.
Sometimes you can...
Sometimes you send it to the wrong people as well.
Well, there is that problem, Have you ever done that?
No.
Thank goodness for that.
No.
But, I mean, sometimes there's ways of blind copying people in, right? Which is what you do when you want the person who you're blind copying in to see it, but you don't want the person you're sending to know about that. This is more about sort of doing things which is not so much underhand as it is for effect.
Yes.
So, for example, if you send an email to the producer, but you copy in his boss, that would be seen as...
threatening.
Either threatening or possibly pressurising. Yeah. Or indeed, if it was bigging yourself up and saying, didn't you think I did a great job today interviewing Rod Stewart?
Yes.
And then copied in the boss, even though it wasn't really meant for him.
Yes.
That would be an
ego mail.
Of sending ego mail.
I wouldn't do that. I don't curry favour with people in the office. I certainly don't curry favour with my bosses because it's one thing I can't... It's one thing I can't stand and haven't been able to stand throughout my life. Grovellers, office grovellers. The office groveller, to me, is the scum of the earth,
Yes.
Scum of the earth, the office groveller, can't wait to... I tell you what, I worked at one place once, right, and I got there in a high-powered capacity.
High-powered?
Yeah, and I would.
You mean you were sort of one of the new bosses, as it were?
I was an executive editor.
Yeah.
And, I used to walk around and talk to people, get motivated and all that, and exchange a few ideas. And then I found about 2 or 3 days later that some of these morons who are just like one rank lower than me in the pecking order were rushing off into the boss's office and giving him great new ideas, which are my ideas that I discussed with them out on the floor.
Well,
you know what I mean?
That can happen, can't it?
And so people like that, I have to finish them off, I'm afraid, because they're filth and scum, and I won't put up with it.
Well, and did you manage to finish any of them off?
Oh, yeah, I finished quite a few of them off. Yeah. They don't mix with a porkmeister without finding themselves slapped in the face with a wet fish. Now...
Well, this is a study that's done by Professor David de Creamer of the Judge Business School, University of Cambridge. So it's very, very high up the believability scale, right?
You bet.
It's basically employees that regularly CC or carbon copy their boss into emails.
Yes.
Do this deliberately to unsettle their co-workers.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
Right.
And that's all about the tension and the fear that exists in office environments
and
sometimes.
Do you know what? Men are more likely to do it than women.
Yeah, I should imagine they are, really.
Because men actually in the workplace are far more bitchy than women ever are.
Well,
you
say that, but I've worked with both genders, and I think they can equally be pretty virulent both to each other and to others.
Well, here it says this, that experts say the behaviour is bad for employees in workplaces as it increases stress and other related illnesses.
Well, it's all part of the game. When you're in an office environment like that, if it's competitive, you've just got to play the game. If you don't, you get trampled and left behind.
Very true.
So I'm afraid that's what it's all about.
How about this? Do you ever email your boss late at night or early in the morning to show your commitment to the job?
No.
Because that's what some people do. The most dedicated can even schedule emails to be sent at an unsociable time, so it looks like they're working.
Oh, yeah.
No, I got one of those the other night from a guy, right?
Oh, right.
An email came into my inbox at about 11:30 p.m.
Yes.
And I was up and about because I was coming into work.
Yeah.
And I went to reply to it, and it said, so-and-so is out of the office.
Yes, that's right.
So the only possible way that could have happened is he timed that email to go automatically at that time.
Yeah. I mean, the problem is these days, not the problem, but the situation is that so many people work in so many different time zones around the world that you get them at all times of day. I mean, in the days when we didn't have email and we didn't have text and tweets and all that, you made phone calls, and it was much more unsociable to wake somebody up at 4 a.m. than it was to send them an email or a text.
I used to get woken up all the time at 4 a.m.
Yeah, exactly.
By
so did
stupid people who were like on the desk or something for the first time.
Yeah.
And they'd go, "Oh, sorry, have I woken you up?" And you go, "Yes, 4 a.m.
That's right, yeah.
Oh, sorry. Should I ring you back? Well, you might as well just tell me what it is now. Yeah.
Exactly, and then it was something unimportant. Now, talking about bosses and relationship with your bosses, how about this, which has come to me from the northeast of England? Rafa Benitez, the old Spanish waiter.
Now, you wouldn't normally call him that.
No.
Normally you preface that with some people call him.
Well, some people do. Some people
but
do.
You wouldn't obviously do that.
No, some people do.
Yeah.
Rafa Benitez, who some people say of him, which I've just said, has received no direct contact from Mike Ashley since Newcastle United sealed their return to the Premier League.
Well, he's been a bit busy with the HMRC investigation, possibly.
Well, that was only this morning. I mean,
he might have known it was coming.
It was last weekend that they sealed it. The club's owner has offered the manager no reassurances after the extraordinary arrest of Lee Charnley, the managing director, and has not congratulated him yet on securing promotion.
No. Well, there's been two stories that I noticed yesterday. One was the HMRC raid on Newcastle and West Ham United.
Yes.
Some might say that they've been jinxed by you in the immediate present, because you were talking only the other day about how great it was at West Ham.
Yeah.
And you were also giving a big up to Newcastle the other night.
Newcastle next season.
The two clubs that you talked about.
Well,
now the subject of a massive probe by the Inland Revenue.
I talked so fondly about West Ham that Mr. Gold, the joint owner of West Ham, retweeted a tweet in which I was praising the new London Stadium, okay?
Yeah.
He felt that good about it. And as you quite rightly say, I got a load of stuff back from Newcastle from people saying, see you in the Shark Bar when Everton get up there.
Yes,
so
exactly.
I have focused on those two clubs, and you're right.
But the other story that has that sort of caught my eye, as it were, was that some sort of titular subsidiary company or a feeder company into Sports Direct is possibly going into liquidation because they aren't able to get any further investment into their business. and it's some kind of provider of business for Sports Direct. I don't know if it's directly owned by Mike Ashley. I'd have to double check.
Oh, you mean it's a feeder business to Sports
kind of
Direct?
a feeder business, I think.
So it's applying
it's
something.
like a warehouse business or something like that.
Yeah.
But the suggestion being that but Ashley's people are not putting any more money into it. So he might have been a bit preoccupied.
Yeah.
But even having said that, you would have expected a phone call, wouldn't you, from the owner?
Yes, absolutely.
Saying, well done.
Well, to be honest, in a perfect world, you'd be sitting next to the owner when that moment happened, because it's a big moment. We're back in the Premier League, you know, and let's all celebrate.
But do you not get the impression
around.
that Mike Ashley, particularly we noticed it and we saw it, I think, when he was being interviewed by the people down at Parliament.
Yeah.
You know, he seems like quite a shy man, quite a solitary guy. Seems to be a sort of guy. Do you remember there was a picture of him sitting at the back end of a pub?
Yes.
Because he was sitting Rolls Royce outside.
That's right.
Went inside with his driver.
That's right.
And just kind of sat there and read the papers. He's not. He seems to me to be a guy who might be a bit awkward.
Well, I don't think he's awkward. I think when you have amassed that fabulous amount of wealth, I think you're very guarded about who you want to open up to, so to speak, and engage yourself in conversation.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, not wishing to sort of big ourselves up, but we do get a little bit of that we have to be rather careful with, you know, people who assume they're your friends and all that kind of stuff, you know what I mean?
Yeah, really?
Yeah, I think so, yeah, but...
well, you had a very nice lunch today, didn't you, with one of our fans?
Well, it wasn't necessarily lunch, but Julia, who is a long-time listener and follower,
one of the first people that came to see us at the Hen and Chickens.
Yeah, and supporter.
With her husband, Ian.
That's right, and she's from Coventry,
That's right.
Certainly Midlands. But she came along to the exhibition at the NEC today, and, you know, there were hundreds of people there milling around, but I spotted her immediately because she's always such a bubbly personality, you know, within the environment. She was full of the joys of spring again, took quite a few pictures and
now, according
put them
to
out.
a question,
it's very nice to see her.
According to a question I've got here, you smuggled her into first class.
No, I didn't really. I said to she was actually travelling home the same way as me.
Yeah.
We're both going south. And the Virgin train leaves Birmingham International. The next stop is Coventry.
Yes.
It's 10 minutes away.
Uh-huh.
So, of course, as I was travelling first class, what do you think I would do? Abandon a lady on a train and say...
Did you buy her a ticket then?
No.
You didn't buy her a ticket?
No, I didn't.
So you encouraged her to travel illegally?
Yes, absolutely.
So if she'd been caught, what would you have done then?
I would have paid for her to be upgraded to first class.
Really?
Yes. But
what if she'd been arrested?
No, she wouldn't have been arrested. I'd have made sure of that, you know. I'd have bribed the guard not to arrest her.
OK. So you could have both ended up in the slammer.
No, not at all, not at all. But I mean...
very irresponsible.
And I'm not suggesting for a moment that guards on Virgin trains are resort to bribery from passengers.
That would be wrong.
Under any circumstances whatsoever.
That would be very wrong to make that allegation.
I mean, I'm using that as in a flippant way, and I'm saying...
You're not in North Korea now,
I'm not in North Korea now. What I would say is, I mean, I'd worked all this out in my head. If the guard comes down and says, tickets, please, and Julie produces a second-class ticket, then I do one of two things. I say either, look, I'll pay for that to be upgraded, and if he says, you can't upgrade, you have to buy a new ticket, I just said, I'll buy a new ticket.
And that'll be £200.
Well, no, but you see, this is quite interesting. Do you know how much her ticket costs from Coventry to Birmingham and back?
No
return?
idea. £4.20.
£2.50.
£2.50
on a big Virgin train.
Right.
So...
Well, it's not very far, is it?
It's not very far. It's about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So I worked out that the first-class fare would only be £5 anyway.
Well, maybe.
Well, they usually double it.
Yeah, but they can also give you a fine for not having the proper ticket.
Well, that's only for being in the wrong carriage.
It's just if you get somebody who's a bit ordinary.
Well, this is what I'm saying. When I said bribe, I meant that in inverted commas. I meant I would have smooth-talked, you know, a Virgin guy into being rational and reasonable about the situation. Okay?
Have you seen the time, by the way?
Have I seen the time?
Yeah.
I don't really ever look at the time.
I know,
because
I've noticed that about
when
you.
I'm in full flow of delivering information, time really seems irrelevant.
It does seem irrelevant but to everyone but you. So occasionally we have to stop because of the time constraints we have.
Indeed.
But we've got many more things to talk about.
Indeed.
And of course, we're going over to Hollywood in a little while as well.
Yeah.
This is Talk Sport.
Yeah.
The Two Mics, simulcast across the UK on Talk Sport and Talk Radio.
Where is my mind? Where is my mind? Where is my mind?
This is Talk Sport. We are the Two Mics. Lots more coming up. Got a nice text here from somebody who doesn't actually give his name, but he says, my daughter took your podcast down to London where she ran in the marathon. She also listens while she's training. Her name is Mandy. Would you please tell her all her family say well done, including Rio the cat? but unfortunately he doesn't give his name.
Right.
So this is for Mandy. Your dad sent this in, but you've got a cat called Rio.
Right, Mandy, congratulations on your wonderful efforts in the marathon and all that. And remember, there was a very famous song in our generation by 10cc called Mandy.
There was.
It was about
I'm Mandy, fly me.
Yeah, wasn't that an airline hostess?
It was.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I saw her walking on the water as the sharks were coming.
Something like that,
for
yeah.
me.
That's quite a good memory to remember that.
It was about an airplane crash, and Mandy, the
about a
airline.
crash?
Yeah, the plane crashed into the ocean.
Right.
And Mandy, the airline hostess,
Yeah.
rescued the man from the sea and saved him from the sharks,
All
but
right.
then perished herself.
Oh, see.
It's quite a tragic story.
See, I didn't even know that all the... I mean, I knew the song was about I'm Mandy, fly me,
Yes.
but I didn't know all that.
That's right, yeah.
Now, here's one from
go on.
somebody called Fisher who says, ego mail, has that been invented especially for El Planco?
Don't know who El Planco is, mate. Nobody of that name on this show.
Yeah.
Now, listen, you are a bit of a culture vulture.
Well, I don't know about that.
So I want to tell you about something which is taking over the world.
Yes.
Now, have you been to the Tate Modern?
Not particularly recently. I was there, I think, last year.
Okay. Now, the Tate Modern is a very distinctive building. It
Yeah.
used to be a power station, didn't it?
It did indeed.
Yeah, okay.
Bankside used to be called Bankside Power Station.
Bankside Power Station, absolutely right. Now, what they've done is, and this is not a news story, but there's a development on it, they built a luxurious block of flats right next to it.
Right.
And I went to see one, and it cost about $675,000.
Well, that was probably a while ago, right?
It's now worth 1.5 million.
say, yeah.
So I didn't get round to buying it, and I should have done. But anyway, the point of my
It's
story...
ridiculous how quickly these prices go up, isn't it? I mean, is that probably, in 3 years or something?
Yeah.
Maybe less?
Yeah.
Doubled in price?
Yes, I would say 3 or 4 years, because when they started building it. And then Bankside, where it's built, became popular, and they started building others.
Right.
And once it becomes a hotspot,
Yeah.
it just shoots up.
Yeah.
Like the tower next to us here, the
Well,
one Black
the whole
Friars,
section
is
from
magnificent.
Waterloo
Yeah.
to London Bridge,
That's right.
which includes Bankside, has just gone mad.
It's gone mad, yeah. So I should have got in there and I didn't. But anyway, the point of my story is, it doesn't matter how much you pay for your property.
Yeah.
You think that if you're wealthy, you can secure privacy in your home.
Yes.
Because you think, I pay a lot, then I'm buying privacy,
Yeah.
right? Guess what's happened here? It's amazing. The residents of the flats next door to the Tate Modern are now suing the gallery.
Yeah.
Because what's happened is they built an extension onto the Tate Modern, which puts the people inside the Tate Modern gallery
Yeah.
within feet of the windows of the luxury flats.
Oh, really?
Some of which, one of the flats, which is now part of the legal action against the Tate, cost £19 million.
Yeah.
And a few feet away, people are able
are just
to
walking
stare
around.
straight into the
Well,
living
one of
room.
the things they've got, I don't know whether this is the same thing, but
Yeah.
you can go to the top of the Tate Modern now, and there's a sort of bar and a restaurant up there, I think.
Right.
And it's got windows all the way along the top.
Yes.
Now, that would have been there, I think, from the beginning. So, but I mean, even there, you're high up, and so you're able to look straight into the building sort of opposite.
Right, okay.
But this sounds as if it's even closer.
Oh, this is even closer. They've built this new extension, and they've got planning permission for it. So clearly, there's no breach of planning rules, or else they wouldn't have got it.
Sure.
But it says the legal action alleges that the gallery's new viewing platform, is just metres away from the block in places. And the people in the flat say we are now a public exhibit and being stared at constantly whenever there are people inside the.
But you see, that's
Modern.
an interesting thing, isn't it? Because in New York, for example, people see that all the time. And I mean, if you remember going all the way back to, do you remember 10, that movie with Dudley Moore?
Yes.
Where one of the things that people did in
Absolutely.
California was they all had telescopes.
That's right.
And they stared at each other from opposite sides of
That's
the
right.
canyon.
That's right,
You know,
yeah.
And in New York, for example, I mean, many of the
What was a
apartments...
beautiful actress called in 10?
Bo Derek.
Bo Derek, I'd say.
Many of the apartments I lived in New York, which weren't ever in particularly big, high buildings... But you kind of were able to see across the street straight into the rooms opposite.
Exactly.
And people knew about it and nobody really cared.
No, but you see, what's changed is that the generations have changed. Because guess what the main complaint is?
What?
The residents are suing because they claim that videos and photos of them living their personal domestic lives inside their homes have been uploaded onto social media.
Right.
And police have been called over concerns about images of a child.
Oh, dear.
You know, that was filmed on one of these blocks of video, which then went on to, social media.
Yes, I guess in the days when I was looking across my road.
Yeah, you
in
weren't
New York,
recording it, were you?
No, because you didn't do that sort of
That's
thing.
right.
I mean, there was nowhere to put it.
It says, as a result, they're alleging that they have been denied a safe home environment, not just for themselves, but for their young children.
Yeah.
One visitor to the 360-degree platform at the top of the gallery's £260 million switch house extension, that's all we're talking about,
Right.
which opened last year to widespread acclaim, described it on TripAdvisor as a voyeur's dream.
Really?
Get up here and see what you want.
Blimey.
A sign asks visitors to respect residents' privacy. Well, that's not going to work, is it? Hey?
Well, maybe you just get some better curtains.
Well,
Get some net curtains.
That's what the guy said. Sir Nicholas Sirota, the outgoing Take director, before he left last September, said, well, why don't they just get some new net curtains?
Yeah.
People purchasing these flats were in no doubt that Tate Modern was going to build its new switch house. If they weren't, their solicitors should have told them.
Right.
And he's probably got a point there.
Well,
you know.
he probably has.
You could probably sue your solicitor and say, why didn't you tell me about this?
I mean, the thing about all of these situations, right, is that, you know, a lot of people would like to, for example, keep no curtains on their windows because for them, this is why I bought this apartment.
Well, it's a light issue.
Well, not just a light issue, but also I wish to view my gorgeous view of London.
That's right.
Because I paid an awful lot of money for it.
Yeah.
It's like these people who say they live in such a safe neighbourhood that they like to keep their doors unlocked.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, you're an idiot.
Yeah, of course you are.
If you keep your doors unlocked, you're going to get robbed.
That's right.
You know, if you like, but some of them do it because it somehow makes them feel superior.
Yes.
Because they go, well, where I live is so nice. And like where I live
I feel a bit like that in Gosport, you see, because at the end of my lounge, there is one big window. That's all it is, you know, which is a sliding door.
I've seen it.
Door,
out to the balcony.
Yes, that's right. And if I pull the shutters back, I have like blinds and curtains.
Yeah.
So if I open the curtains and then pull the blinds back, right? Is it the blinds? One of these things.
Well, Venetian blinds.
Venetian blinds, that's right. Yeah,
are they the ones that are vertical?
Yes, they're vertical.
Or are they sort of horizontal?
No, it's lovely when you switch the button and they go out. You get this swishing noise, you know.
Oh, I know.
They come back and open the light up.
They're
to
not
the window.
electronic, are they?
No, they're not. I use a cord, actually.
A cord?
Yeah, a cord, yeah. But what I'm saying is that then I can sit at the other end of the room.
Yes.
If, for instance, I'm having, you know, a bit of pate or something like that.
A bit of pate?
A bit of pate, yeah. yeah. And I can stare out.
Why would you be having a bit of pate?
Well, I sometimes do.
Isn't
with a
that
bit
bad
of
for
toast.
you?
No. And I can stare out over Portsmouth Harbour for about a mile.
Yeah.
And in fact, right across the English Channel to the Isle of Wight.
Yeah.
And nobody can stare at me.
Well, what about if they go up to the Spinnaker, the tower?
Well, if they go up to Spinnaker and get themselves a pair of binoculars, they can. But why would they? You know, there's hundreds of flats there.
Sure.
Why would they pick on mine?
But if, for example, somebody did what this guy's just done, and they put up a second tower block that blocks your view, which you wouldn't be happy about, but also would mean that somebody could look in.
Yeah.
You probably wouldn't over-open the windows.
Absolutely. But anyway, look, this story doesn't stop there, because I tell you why. I like St Ives a lot. I've been there a couple of times in the last few years. I think it's great, you know, particularly actually in autumn, you know, when all the crowds have gone and all that, and you've got it to yourself and the wind's whipping in off the ocean. I think it's great. But anyway, when I first started going there a couple of years ago, the Tate had opened like a little outpost there.
Oh, yeah.
It is now massive. I'm just going to show you now if you look at the blue and the red lines, the Tate is expanding in St Ives. It seems to have taken over about 1/3 of the whole town.
Absolutely.
And
it's obviously making plenty of money.
Yeah, exactly. But, you know, it used to be a little fishing village, St Ives. It's now it's described now as a European cultural centre.
And, of course, because it's all about art, nobody's ever going to question it in the city council.
Did the people of St Ives sign up to become a massive cultural centre? Extension to the Tate Gallery in St Ives, which will open to the public later this year, will include an extra 500 square metres of space, publicly accessible roof garden. I mean, blimey, O'Reilly, you know, the doubling of the space will allow us to tell the story of modernisation better.
Right, but I mean,
what's all this about?
Well, in the end, right, if you've got a house in St Ives and you don't like it anymore, sell it, because all of these movements by people like the Tate Gallery will have put the prices up to such an extent that you'll have made a fortune on it.
Well, you know, Marcos
and it's progress which you normally are very much in favour of.
The gallery's executive director said that the people of St Ives had feared that the gallery would overpower the town.
Right.
OK?
Well,
but now says they're very supportive because we brought in 11 million quid last year through 250,000 annual visitors. I don't want St Ives to be full of arty-tarty people who go off to St Ives should be full of people getting bladderated on holiday.
No, not true.
And having a good time.
Incorrect.
Not a load of cultural nerds who go there to look at some junk, which is described as sculpture.
But you don't live in St Ives.
Yeah, but I go there on holiday. I don't want to be bumping into all these, sort of highly intellectual people who literally walk around the Tate Gallery looking at bits of junk described as sculpture. You know, it shouldn't happen in St Ives.
You're such a Philistine.
No.
It's going to happen somewhere, and it's not going to happen in Gosport anytime soon, believe me.
No.
This is Talk Sport.
Flaring out the G-Funk, sipping on juice and gin. Just me and a friend, feeling kind of groovy, working on a movie. Yeah, right.
But we did nothing, absolutely buckets that day. And I'll say, what the hell am I doing drinking in LA at 26?
Slide.
This is Talk Sport. We are the two Mikes, and it's been quite a while since we picked up with Sandro Manetti over in Hollywood. He's our favourite Hollywood correspondent, of course. He always fills us full of wonder and amazing stories from that part of the world. Let's find out what's been going on. Yep. Sandro, very good afternoon, very good morning to you, I should say.
I will try and live up to that billing. Greetings from the land of amazement and wonder.
Yeah, the land of amazement and wonder.
Indeed.
How is the land of amazement and wonder? What is the big story? I'm told that the new hot couple are Tesla CEO Elon Musk and Johnny Depp's ex-wife Amber Heard.
That's right. Now, you'll remember the tempestuous breakup between Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. Their marriage lasted all of just a few months, but the rows were ferocious, the accusations were wild, the payout was huge, and Amber Heard has rebounded into the arms of someone even richer and more admired than Johnny Depp. Yes, the Tesla creator, the Mars mission man, Elon Musk, who also finds himself single, having split from his British wife, Tallulah Riley. You might remember her from the St. Trinian's films. And so now, yes, they're a couple. Elon and Amber. What will their nickname be?
Well, I mean, Amber had to settle for only about £7 million from Johnny Depp, so I suppose that's not going to keep him for very long, is it?
Yeah, I mean, Elon Musk has got 7 billion rather than 7 million. So, yes, indeed. So it'll be interesting. So will they end up sort of down the aisle? What will happen, or even up the aisle?
Absolutely. Well, talking about that and domestic situations, Sandro, what about the situation regarding Serena Williams? She apparently inadvertently let the world know that she was expecting a child.
If you're like me, a bit useless on social media, you probably relate to what Serena Williams did. So she's taking a photo on her phone of her growing baby bump, and she tries to store it, but instead she presses send on her Snapchat link and inadvertently tells the world that she's pregnant.
Amazing.
She wasn't planning to announce it until weeks later, but just by pressing the wrong button, the world knows. And so she's revealed that in an interview. She's also revealed that this is not the end of her tennis career. She's looking forward to returning and playing again as a mum and having her baby sort of cheering her on as she wins even more Grand Slams. So let's see if she does.
Indeed,
Absolutely
indeed.
Right. Now, Porky and I were just talking about some rather lavish, costed apartments here in London because the Tate Gallery viewing platform now looks right in on them. So people are a bit unhappy about that. But if they really are that unhappy, they could go over to your part of the world in LA and pick up where Jay-Z and Beyonce have left off, right? Because they've just put in a $120 million bid for the most lavish house in LA.
Yes, indeed. It's in Bel Air. It's just around the corner from Nancy Reagan's gaff. And this place has just the 9 bedrooms, but 4 swimming pools and a 15-car garage and bulletproof windows. Right. And so that's what 120 million gets you.
This is not this place that was doing the rounds on Facebook a while ago, was it? Where it's got a 15-car garage, but it's also got about 20 really, really expensive classic cars in it as well.
No, that's the one. If you haven't got your toys already, you can buy the helicopters and the classic cars. But that's not a problem for Jay-Z. He needs a bigger garage. You know, he's already got 14 classic sports cars. So the idea of a 15-car garage is appealing to him and worth going as high as 120 million. And of course, they're expecting twins at the moment, so they've already got their daughter Blue Ivy, a couple of kids coming along, and if they have a fourth one swimming pool for each child.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Now, Sandra, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but somebody sent me some information about Jackie Collins. I always thought Jackie Collins was actually even more glamorous than her very glamorous sister Joan Collins, and they've sent me details of an auction which is taking place because she had so much material possessions that her daughters have now said, look, there's no point in hoarding them, we're getting rid of it. And they're selling things like a pair of diamond earrings, 67,200. Her unique car with her own registration plate, Lucky 77, that was the name of a character in some of her crime novels. That's going for
Lucky Sant'Angelo, I know, I've read them.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah, go on.
I am going round hoping there might be one or two bargains here. Now Jackie Collins had very expensive taste, but I'm hoping there might be a few sort of cheaper things going there that I can afford on my budget. But Jackie, I really miss her. And this is the thing that happens now in Hollywood: estate sale.
Yes.
It happened with Carrie Fisher and Debbie Reynolds as well. And so just the other week, Tori Spelling was moving house and was selling all her rubbish. And not so long ago, I was at Cher's place.
Right.
And so it's just bizarre to be just in the garden of these huge celebrities where they've got all the stuff out on the lawn and you want to make a bid for stuff, you know.
So it's like it's literally like a boot sale or a
like
garage sale, is it? Yeah. But except that, for instance,
exactly that.
In her sale, there's a ring, one ring alone, worth £120,000. I mean, they just can't leave these lying around on a table in the back garden, can they?
This is why Beyonce and Jay-Z are moving to the right neighbourhood, because they can get all the furniture they need for their new house just by going to the local, garage sales.
That's
fantastic.
Yeah, well, you can actually,
Amazing stuff.
No problem, yeah.
Now, what about this feud that's going on between Aretha Franklin and Dionne Warwick, which always makes me sad to hear because...
Welcome by.
Yeah, that's what they should do, right? That's what they should be doing. But instead they're in a big row about Whitney Houston. I mean, three fantastic singers. What on earth are they arguing about?
Well, normally we see celebrities arguing with each other over Twitter or social media, but Aretha and Dionne are a bit old school. Aretha sent a fax. Yes, there is still a fax somewhere in Los Angeles, and she sent that to the Associated Press, totally bad-mouthing Dionne Warwick, saying about, how she hates her and she doesn't like her very much. And this all goes back to Dionne Warwick claiming in public that Aretha was Whitney's godmother. Now, Aretha says not only is this not true, it's libelous. She doesn't want to be associated with all the drug scandals and relationship scandals around sort of Whitney Houston and withdraw it or else sue. And by the way, Dionne, you're bad news. And so they're playing out a feud over fax machine. I love it.
So she's not in any way related to Whitney Houston, because I'm sure I've seen that written in various pieces from time to time.
Yes, that is incorrect. You have seen it written in various pieces, and Aretha Franklin has decided to come forward and say, I'm going to stop this now because this is outrageous. And, she's taken her time over it. But for whatever reason, the time is now. She says enough time has passed. Stop this rumour. Admires Whitney as a singer, but she doesn't like the negative publicity circus that's around the late singer, and says, I don't want any part of it. I love a nice, juicy celebrity feud.
Yes, indeed.
Absolutely, yeah.
Now, I suppose the name of the moment on everybody's lips is director of Silence of the Lambs, Jonathan Demme, who died yesterday from cancer at 73. A fantastic director, made some very, very interesting films, and he was quite sort of unorthodox, wasn't he?
Was, and working right up until the end. In just 1 hour's time here in America, the new cop series Shots Fired goes out, and he directed tonight's episode of that. So at 73, he was still working and very much in demand. As you know, TV is the new movies. That's a hot new series, and they wanted his expertise directing it. Both Anthony Hopkins and Jodie Foster, who won Silence of the Lambs, have led the tributes. And, a terrific director, and, he's gone. But what a legacy he leaves in Silence of the Lambs, a film that's been mercilessly copied by about 35 other movies, but never bettered.
Absolutely. Is Brad Pitt now making more of his life than he has been in the past troubled sort of months and years?
It's funny. Just the other day, I saw Brad Pitt outside a cinema, and that used to never happen because he and Angelina travel when they were together with 8 to 16 bodyguards. And so Brad was just out to be on a red carpet at a premiere, and there was no bodyguards at all. There on his own, drove himself, and just got immediately surrounded by fans who wanted selfies. Seemed to quite enjoy it. He has a different life. Now he's away from the Angelina circus. But it looks like he's setting his differences a bit with Angelina. She has sole custody of their kids following the divorce, but he's just had the first sort of sleepover custody visit. He has been able to stay a night in the house with the kids. So hopefully the frosty relationship between those two is melting just a little. But that was a savage breakup. Talk about Aretha and Dion. Those two went from lovers to haters very quickly.
Indeed, and last time we spoke as well, Sandro, we were still in the midst of the kind of the shock morning after period, I suppose, of Donald Trump winning the election. Has it all calmed down a bit now in La La Land? Are they all sort of getting on? Are they all getting on with life, or are they still having rallies every 5 minutes?
No, they're still having rallies every 5 minutes. Everyone's shocked by the statistic out today that 94% of Trump voters said they'd still vote for him again tomorrow. So despite all the negative publicity, it seems to be working with the voters who put him in there. Here in Hollywood, there is an impending writers' strike. Hollywood could all shut down with the screenwriters down in tools next week, but no one's talking about that. They're talking about the situation in North Korea, and they're like, never mind the writers' strike. There might be no world left.
What about a nuclear strike?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
That's what dominates the conversation.
Although is that going to
all they talk about?
But if the writer's strike goes ahead, is that going to put the mockers on some sort of, because we know that some of these TV shows don't have that much lead time, so are they writing for shows that are still yet to be broadcast? If you know what I mean.
Well, live shows like Saturday Night Live, that will have to shut down, and the nightly chat shows like James Corden, Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon, all those shows will have to air repeats because those are written on the day. And then as for upcoming shows, most of them are written months ahead and filmed months ahead. But, there'll be no auditions in Hollywood. There'll be no new material. And so if it lasts a long time, it could be devastating and have a knock-on effect on the whole community. But as I said, people are thinking, well, we'll probably all be dead next week anyway, so why bother?
Yeah, Indeed. Well, listen, Sandro, let's hope that's not the case and we still have a chance to talk to you once again before the end of the world. That's Sandro Bonetti over there in Hollywood, or indeed possibly West Hollywood, Beverly Hills, covers the whole area. This is Talk Sport. Loads more coming up.
The Two Mics, simulcast across the UK on Talk Sport and Talk Radio.
Crazy, but that's how it goes. Millions of people living as hoes. Yeah, but maybe.
This is Talk Sport. We are the Two Mics. Coming up in the next hour, Porkyvision is going to be along, of course, and you never know quite what shows are going to be cast upon before you, but I'm sure it will be very, very entertaining.
Yes.
A couple of people have tweeted. How about this from John? It says 120 million for a house. How many bags of scratchings does a portmaster have to sell before he buys that to eat his pate in luxury?
Yes, well...
and Zim says, I slept rough on the roof at the Tate Modern. The neighbours were a bloody nightmare. I presume he means that he must have somehow sneaked in and slept on the roof.
Indeed, absolutely. Yeah. Now, listen, we haven't looked at the situation regarding Southampton, have we?
We have not, no, and indeed, because we've spoken about this in the past a few times, that they were on the brink of being purchased by a Chinese conglomerate. Yeah. That appears to now have been derailed, doesn't it?
That's right. Premier League bosses blocked a Chinese takeover of Southampton due to dramatic bribery allegations.
Yeah.
Lander Sports Development Chief Gao Qisheng, I think that's how it's pronounced.
I think that's how it's pronounced.
Gao Jishang is fighting his case and could learn today whether he can make a £200 million bid. Yeah. Prem Board barred Gao in February after obtaining evidence he had twice been involved in corruption cases in China.
Well, that's the problem, isn't it? Because we often hear the words... due diligence with regard to various people that have come in and bought football clubs.
Yes.
And we've had problems in Portsmouth, problems in Birmingham, problems in Leeds, to name but three.
That's right.
All of which should have been investigated properly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess it's a good thing if the Premier League are now saying we're going to have a look at these guys properly before we give it the go-ahead.
But this situation's quite serious. The alleged corruption case he was involved in ended with a senior city politician being executed by lethal injection by the Chinese authorities. Now, Gao has been named in Chinese state media as one of a number of businessmen who allegedly gave bribes to Zhu Maliong, the guy who was put to death in 2011. And Maliong was a former vice mayor of the city of Hangzhou, and is known as his nickname was Zhu Three More.
Why?
Well, because he had a lust for money, women, and more women.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so he's a bit of a womanizer, this guy.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, apparently the Chinese state media have got quite a lot of what we would call a dossier on this guy.
Indeed.
Well, I wonder why he wants to buy Southampton specifically.
Well, perhaps they're up for sale and there aren't a lot of clubs for sale. But then again, go just down the coast, right, from Southampton to Bournemouth.
Yeah.
And to my absolute and utter amazement and shock, because, of course, part of my family live in Bournemouth and you've actually been to my sister's home. It says here, Bournemouth has the UK's highest rate of people unfit to work through alcohol problems.
Really?
Yeah.
I wonder when they did that survey. Edinburgh, one of the weekends you were down there.
Maybe. Edinburgh is second.
Edinburgh, I can believe.
And followed by Aberdeen.
Yeah, I haven't been to Aberdeen, so I can't say anything about that.
Glasgow,
I can believe.
And then Blackpool.
Really?
Yeah.
So Bournemouth must have what you would call a section of it that certainly I've never seen.
No, I've never seen either.
I mean, is there a sort of...
I don't know.
Although, do you know when... I think it was the day after the football, and we went out for a drink before we headed back into to London.
Indeed.
And we went to a Wetherspoons, I seem to remember.
Oh, we did, actually.
And was that in Bournemouth, or was that somewhere outside?
No, that was in Bournemouth.
Because that particular part of Bournemouth didn't look very salubrious.
Didn't look great,
if you don't mind me saying so.
Well, that would be the working people, so to speak.
Well, but that must be the bit they're talking about.
Well, it says here...
Because it's not the bit where your sister lives, which is very leafy and very expensive.
Yes, exactly.
Full of massive houses.
Yes, that's right. It says here, taxpayers fork out £300 million a year in employment support allowance to booze addicts. The benefit, which can be up to £73.10... I didn't know this. You get £73.10 a week if you can prove you're a booze addict.
Really?
And it's claimed...
What, you mean on top of any other benefit you get?
I don't know. Perhaps it's an alternative benefit.
Well, like 73 quid to spend on booze because you're an addict.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah,
you get £73.10p off the state to spend on booze.
Yeah. That goes quite a long way in Wetherspoons, doesn't it?
It would do. Because some beer in Wetherspoons is less than £2.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be 150 pints a week. That's not bad, is it?
Well, I'll keep most people going.
Provided by the state. 150 pints a week, that's you're talking here about 20 pints a day.
20 pints a day?
Yeah.
I think that'd be more than sufficient to keep most people's booze habit in order.
I can't believe it.
Always drink responsibly, by the way.
Yeah. Bladderation and moderation, please. Yeah. But it looks, according to this report, like the government are giving these dipsos enough money to jug 20 pints a day in Wetherspoons.
That's extraordinary.
How can that be
that can't be right.
But I mean, the worst thing is that figure is claimed in this country by over 57,000 alcoholics.
I had no idea.
Who are deemed to have such a severe drink problem they're unable to hold down jobs.
Yeah.
Alcohol Concern said of the Department of Work and Pensions figures, we need the government to invest in treatment services.
Yeah.
Seems like they already are.
Well, they are, yeah.
The treatment bin.
Have another 20 pints.
Yeah, push off and get more bladderated. Yeah. Don't bother us.
Exactly right. But there are also there are treatment centres, aren't there? I mean, you can get state help, I think. You can get NHS funding to go to a drying out place, can't you?
I don't know.
Well, I mean, I imagine you can.
It's actually, this figure's worse. The employment support allowance to booze addicts, right? I mean, that 57,000, I don't know who that relates to, but in total in this country, 2.5 million people claim this.
Yeah.
2.5 million.
That's 2.5 million claim the 57 quid or whatever it is.
The £73.10p.
That's extraordinary.
And it's a payment for those unable to work due to illness or disability.
Right.
But they must have realised that the bladderation problem is severe because apparently the weekly payment early this month was cut from £102 to £73.
102?
So £102, what do you get for that?
You can start going to some cocktail bars for that.
50 pints for that.
Yeah. Well, but you might also be able to sort of ratchet up the expense thing. You might be able
I got it the wrong way round.
Dry martinis.
£73.10 if a pint's are less than £2 is in fact only 37 pints a week.
Is it?
So it's only about...
Oh, instead of doubling it.
It's only about 5 a day.
Well, that's still quite a lot,
It used to be up to 7 or 8 a day.
5 pints a day is quite a lot of beer.
It certainly is, yeah.
But going back to the Southampton situation, apparently there are other offers on the table, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because Katarina Lieber, who is the owner, who I thought has always been considered to be quite a decent owner of a football club.
Well, she's the daughter of the man
the guy that bought it, right?
Who bought it, who then died.
Yeah.
She kept
Is she not thought to be quite a good administrator of it all?
Yes, indeed. I think she's done. She's recognised to have done a very good job and kept the thing on an even keel. But I think I knew a year or two ago that the minute she could sort of find another responsible buyer, she probably would.
Yeah, and there are some other buyers on the table.
Yes, she's not exactly, a huge football fan, apparently.
Yeah, well, how about this? Yeah. A hoard of gold and precious stones, state executions and dodgy deals could determine the future of Southampton Football Club today.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
So that's right. What this guy is connected to.
Because that appeal, I think, is currently being considered by the Premier League board, isn't it?
That's right, yeah. Apparently, if the Premier League were to basically say this guy can no longer be an applicant to buy the Southampton Football Club, it would actually be the first time they've ever done anything like this.
Done anything like this in what respect?
Well, in the sense where they've actually withdrawn the invitation, if you like, to an organisation because they've previously felt that they're okay.
Right.
And it now turns out they weren't.
Right, okay, fine. Hey, what do you do when you're in your car and you pull up behind some guy who's got a, baby on board sign in the back?
Well, what do you mean, what do I do?
Well, you don't feel like getting out and punching his face in?
No. I don't have those kind of anger issues.
Baby on board.
Why would I just want to get out of the car and punch his face in?
Well, I don't mean that literally, of course.
Of course not.
That was a satirical comment, folks, by the way. I'm not advocating violence under any circumstances.
No, that would be entirely wrong.
But, when you see Daddy's little monkey, or,
well, I generally just dismiss it.
Mummy's little
It doesn't bother me that much.
Yeah, but what I'm
more concerned about when the light turns green, he drives away.
Yeah, well, the reason I'm talking to you about this is because I'm delighted to be able to say that I've received information that these ridiculous signs in the back,
What, the ones that hang or the ones that
the ones that hang, baby on board,
and,
mummy's little ballerina and all this kind of stuff, may be banned because they are such a distraction to the concentration.
Have you ever, because in America, of course, the big thing is stickers.
Yes, that's right,
Bumper stickers.
Yeah, bumper stickers.
Have you ever put a bumper sticker on your car?
No, of course
Never, ever?
Never, ever, no.
You never put, like, a football-related thing on it? You never thought of putting like an Everton sticker?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, when we got to a cup final once, I had one stuck in the back of my window. That's right.
So what did you have?
Everton, and it had two rubber, stickers type things.
Oh yeah. So what? It wasn't actually fixed to the window.
No, you had a sticker either end, and you fixed it to the inside of the back window.
See, that's just as annoying as a baby on board, isn't it?
Well, not really, because what I'm saying is that's my sign, Everton, was a display of my affection for my football club.
Right.
The baby on board thing.
Well, that's a sign of affection for your child.
No,
surely.
it's not. No, it's some jerk driving around.
How's it different?
Well, I'm just about to explain to you if you'd shut up and listen.
Well, if you took a bit quicker to explain things, I wouldn't have to keep asking you the same question over and over again, you plank.
It's some jerk driving around and saying, hey, listen, I've got a baby in this car, so you better drive more carefully.
So why do you take such exception to it?
Well, because what I would like to see is a sign in the back of somebody's car saying, no baby on board, please crash into me. Because that's the opposite, isn't it?
Well, why
do people think that because you say there's a baby on board, you're going to be a safer driver, the car behind?
I don't take
How pompous is that?
Well, maybe it is pompous, but I don't take the inference. It doesn't bother me as much.
Yeah.
I can see where you're going with it. I can see what you're saying, that some people would like you to sort of somehow stay back.
Yeah.
For example, I quite like to see the signs on trucks where it says, if you can't see my mirrors, I can't see you.
Yes.
I think that's quite useful. Because a lot of people are very stupid.
The one I can't stand is, how am I driving? Phone this number.
Yeah.
What creep would ring up some company and say...
well, people do it a lot.
I just wanted to report, give you a report on your driver's ability to drive his lorry.
We do it a lot,
I thought
actually.
he was very good, or I thought he was very bad.
Of course, you can't do it now because you'll get fined and then also a load of points on your licence for using your phone while you're driving.
Exactly,
Go, well, hang on, I was just reporting this guy for trying to nearly kill me.
Yes, that's
I had
right.
that situation when I was driving with the producer behind the glass there.
Yeah.
Up to Birmingham. That guy tried to kill me in the truck.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So that would have been quite handy to ring his bosses.
You can be rather aggressive behind the wheel.
I was not being aggressive at all.
So you have to be.
But I think if anyone is going to talk about being aggressive behind the wheel, I think your clear anger management issues need to be taken control of.
Not at all.
The idea that when you see somebody with a baby on board stick, you want to jump out and start beating them to a pulp.
Well, no.
I think people should get concerned about that.
No, but I think what I'd like to have is I'd like to have the original James Bond probes that come out the middle of the wheel, and just go down the side of his car, just to. Just explain to him
a few flat tyres.
Yeah, that he's a
get some machine guns while you're at it. This is Talk Sport. We've got Porkyvision coming up in the next hour with the 2 mics. tweets here. Here's one from Tony, who wants to be helpful. He says, the signs in the cars are in case of accidents to let the emergency services know a child may be on board.
Yes.
Well, I don't think that's true at all.
No, they're not.
Because just because you've got a baby on board sign does not mean the baby's actually in the car.
Exactly.
Does it?
They're just posers who think, look, there's nothing in their life that makes them special from anybody else. They are just average Joe Soap, non-entities, not done anything in their life. So just to look a little bit special, they stick a sign in the back saying baby on board so that, others will stop and say, oh, golly, look, there's a child in that car and that man's responsible enough to put a sign in the back.
Yeah, I don't think that's required at all.
Absolutely pathetic. And by the way, I saw a brilliant idea today from that guy who runs the AA. Is it Edmund King?
Well, yeah, he doesn't really run the AA. Well, he's a sort of chief spokesman, isn't he?
Yeah,
You know he jumped ship, don't you? He used to be on the RAC.
No, I didn't know that,
he was the top honcho for the RAC. He talks terribly well. One of those beautiful radio voices. But he suddenly jumped ship in the middle of his career to work for these arch rivals.
Oh, I didn't realise that. Yeah. But anyway, look, I've always said in the past, I say it about footballers, I don't criticise any man who wants to better himself. And if he was a better job and he was getting more dosh, good for him. But anyway, his plan to solve congestion by bringing more money into the road building process is to have sponsored roads.
Sponsored roads?
Yeah, so the last 25 miles of the M6, if you're going towards Manchester, could be called Manchester United Motorway.
Yeah, do you think Manchester City fans would refuse to use it?
Well, maybe, but then you could get another road somewhere in the northwest and call it Manchester City Motorway. You see what I mean?
And how would that benefit anyone, though, really?
Well, because they'd put money into the road building process.
Would they then be responsible for maintaining it as well?
They'd be responsible for maintaining it. Right. They would raise money to have great banner signs all the way down it. You see what I mean? Every time you came to a bridge, over the top, it would be have all the Manchester United logos on it.
Wouldn't that be a bit distracting, though?
No, not at all. I think it would make the world more colourful. And in doing that, then hopefully what we could do is we could build a load more toll roads. Yeah. Like loads and loads and loads of toll roads.
The trouble with this country, though, again, is that it's just not enough room.
There's plenty of room.
You go to big countries like Germany, you go to big countries like France.
No, there's plenty of room.
Well, no, there isn't really.
There is.
You can't build massive roads. You can build small stretches of road and make them reasonably wide.
Roads take up no space at all.
Yeah, they do, though.
Look, once again today, I was on the train up to Birmingham and back, okay? And I'm not joking. Once you get out of the Greater London, and before you get into the Midlands conurbation, there's nothing but fields on right or left.
The fields are doing things, though. The fields are growing stuff.
Well, they're not all fields do things, and you can build toll motorways. The toll motorway that takes you round the West Midlands, which should have been built like 30 years ago, it was only built like 5 years ago, is a fantastic asset because it means you haven't got to sit in that grindingly...
Is that the M69 triangle?
No. It's you're going up the M6.
Yeah.
And
you're talking about the pay bit where you go through the M6.
Yeah, I'm talking about the toll motorway.
The M6 toll, yeah.
That's right, yeah. That is a fantastic asset.
That takes up a large amount of space.
It doesn't take up hardly any space.
Oh, come on.
6 lanes of tarmac do not take up a lot of space.
Take up a lot of space. It takes a lot of space to build it.
Well,
it takes an awful lot of space. All I can tell you is with the A21, which they're trying to make into a dual carriageway, right? From 2 lanes, it's taking an absolute age to do and has completely wrecked a very nice section of the countryside between Tunbridge and Tunbridge Wells.
Countryside. We need more roads and less countryside, in my view.
No, that's not true. You can't just have nothing going on in a country apart from a load of roads and tarmac.
Because it makes the country more efficient, and that's what we need.
Lizzie says this: you guys and I must remember what used to be on all cars, which was from Esso, and was the ad for "Is there a tiger in your tank?"
Is there a tiger in your tank?
I remember that. And that was I don't think we ever had one.
No, that was a tiger's tail on a bit of elastic with a sucker which you stuck in the back of your window.
Yeah,
quite ludicrous.
Yeah, Esso used to have loads of different things.
We had one. Now listen, the man who must not be named and his 3 compatriots brought out Sgt. Pepper's 50 years ago.
Yes.
On the 1st of June. Listen to this from some half-bake who I may or may not name when I've read you what he wrote in a letter to a newspaper, okay? As someone who flogged off my pop and rock records to fund a trip to Paris in the late 70s, I find the attention devoted to the most overrated bit of old tat in musical history, also known as the Sgt. Pepper album, way over the top.
Right.
I owned every Beatles record ever made, including rarities, which would now be worth a fortune. Nowadays, give me Charlie Parker, a true genius and a complete original. By comparison, the Beatles were trite.
Oh, yeah.
This man is clearly on some sort of mind-bending drugs.
Is this some kind of man who has an outlet of one kind or another to write this stuff?
I mean, who's Charlie Parker? A drummer?
Well, Charlie Parker's a jazz trumpeter, isn't he?
Was he? I thought he was a drummer. Okay. So anyway, it goes on to say, like many Merseybeat bands, so this man is now being very anti-Liverpool, okay? Like many Merseybeat bands, most of their repertoire was derived from black rhythm and blues musicians who did it better with more soul. The London-based bands, such as the Stones, the Yardbirds, were far cooler. Watch Antonioni's Blow Up. Was that the film made with David Hemmings in it?
No, that was Blowout, I think.
Oh, okay. Well, this says Blow
Up.
Up.
No, it was
anyway.
Blow Up. Yeah, you're
was
right.
it Blow Up? Yeah. Watch Antonioni's Blow Up to see what I mean. Listen to the delights of J.S. Bach, Delius, Wagner, Mozart, and even good old Nigel Kennedy playing Vivaldi's Four Seasons. Feel the joy and the depth and the beauty. If you still want to listen to 60s music at its best and most original, then you can turn to The Cream, Velvet Underground, Rolling Stones, Yardbirds and The Who. Joni Mitchell had more depth and originality than the Beatles ever did. The 60s, and particularly Sgt. Pepper, were overrated. The Beatles weren't that original or even that good. Their live performances were pathetic, their albums shallow and pretentious. If I want to see anything from Liverpool, I'd rather go and see...
Well,
hang on, here, listen to this. I'd rather go and see Ken Dodd.
Okay. Well, I mean, he's entitled to his opinion, whoever he is.
Of drivel.
He's entitled to his opinion. Some of what he says I would have to say I would agree with, because there is a remarkable amount of overhyping, especially when you have anniversaries around the Beatles, considering they were around for a very short period of time, and considering that they were, in fact, a band for less time than almost any other band you can think of, but had incredible success because of the fact that they were very different, they were very innovative. Lots of the stuff about the Beatles is great, but there is a slight kind of over-zealousness about how brilliant they all were, wasn't there?
No,
don't you think?
No, because
not everything they did was brilliant.
Well, I think most things they did were brilliant.
In the same by the same token, not everything Eric Clapton did was brilliant. No. Not everything Rolling Stones did was brilliant.
Exactly.
But to deify anyone, I think, like they have been deified, is probably wrong.
Well, not in my view, it's not. But anyway, we've
I hope you're not going to use this as another excuse to play more Beatles
Not
music.
At all, not at all.
Thank God for that.
The other rock and roll story, if you can call it that, is that, Rick Parfitt sadly died, didn't he? He died on Christmas Eve.
Was it Christmas Eve?
Yeah.
It was relatively recent, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's like 4 or 5 months ago.
Yeah.
So obviously his son, who was also called Rick Parfitt, thought, there's got to be a period of mourning for my dad, obviously, because he and Francis Rossi were such good mates for like 60 years, you know what I mean?
Sure.
So when he went round to see old Francis and said, a period of mourning, Francis Rossi said, what are you on about? Just hired a new guitarist.
Right.
We're doing a show tomorrow night.
Yeah, well,
sorry.
Like showbiz, the show must go on, right?
And so it says... son of status quo legend Rick Parfitt slammed the band's frontman Francis Rossi, claimed his dad was treated awfully in the months before he died, and now, no time of mourning for him at all, just goes on.
So is he having a row with Francis Rossi then?
He is, yeah.
That seems a bit unfortunate.
Yeah.
Speaking of rolled bands, actually, by the way, somebody pointed out, you remember we mentioned the Steam Packet the other night?
Steam Packet,
Steam Packet. You know that Rod Stewart was the singer of the Steam Packet?
No.
Yeah, he was, yeah.
No, hey, well, he didn't sing on that, did he?
I don't think that was the song, no, but the Steam Packet band was actually fronted by him. And somebody sent a picture.
Well, I remember, of course, Rod was in the Small Faces.
Yeah, he was in the Faces as well.
Oh, sorry, not Small Faces. Small Faces were a different group altogether.
Small Faces was Steve Marriott.
Stevie Marriott, that's right, yeah. So he was in the Faces.
The Faces, yeah.
And in fact,
Ronnie Wood.
In fact, he told us that story, didn't he? About when he was in the Faces.
Yeah, well, they played in some aircraft hangar, yeah. Surrounded by about 100 American Air Force
who all
men.
sat round the edge.
Yeah.
So in the middle of the aircraft hangar, there was nothing but space.
That's right.
That's right.
Sounded awful. Now,
right,
Anthony says he's in favour of your road sponsorship scheme. He says maybe Everton could sponsor the Road to Nowhere.
Oh, I see. I put myself up for that one, didn't I?
Indeed, I'm afraid so. Alan
We're
says,
on the road to nowhere.
Spotted in the Porkymobile, plank on board, which you could put if you wanted to. Here's one from Darren who says, this booze allowance sounds suspiciously like job seekers allowance. Porky made me laugh working out 150 pints a week for alcoholics. And Simon says the £73 a week is the total, not extra, and is for bills, food and everything else.
Really?
It equates to poverty.
Well, how come most of them spend their time in in lowly bars, and I don't include Wetherspoons in that?
Well, that's where you see them all. Nat says basically what you're saying is if you declare yourselves an alcoholic, the state gives you more money.
Is that right?
Well, that's what you're saying.
Yeah, well, I think that is right, yeah. I think it's like, isn't it? Somebody told me this, I can't believe it's true. If you want to get a few more bob out the state, you turn up at the dole office with a mangy old dog.
Really?
And they give you about another 10 quid a week to feed the dog.
To feed the dog?
But you've actually borrowed the dog from some other dropout, and just pretended it's yours.
I mean, you make it sound a lot easier than I think it is.
Well, no, you get another 10 quid for
I think anyone who's suffered through the slings and arrows of actually claiming money from the state.
Yeah.
I mean, some people do it with great ease, but I think a lot of people struggle.
But
Trevor says this. I think Revolver is a much better album than Sgt. Pepper.
I thought the White Album was the album, to be honest, or Abbey Road.
Yeah.
I agree. Sgt. Pepper, to me, is a bit sort of weird.
Yeah, but it is a bit weird, but that's because they were all stoned and they were all getting into that kind of thing.
And Within You and Without You was the most extraordinary record, but John Lennon apparently fought for George and said, no, we should have a bit of that on. It's great. It's the sitar.
Right.
Yeah.
Here's one from David. What winds me up is the I'm a tough guy miniature boxing gloves hanging from the rear view mirror. Yeah, that is always ridiculous. All furry dice. Now, we're running out of time rapidly, so we better stop for a while. And then it's going to be Porkyvision very shortly.
Is it? Yeah.
The Two Mics. Simulcast across the UK on Talk Sport and Talk Radio.
My baby takes the morning train. He works from 9 till 5, and then he takes another home again to find me waiting for him.
That's a great one here.
Go
Before
on.
we discuss why you played Sheena Easton, Stephen says £2 a pint, £70 benefits equals 130 pints. Hashtag blank.
Yeah, that's right. I got that one wrong. But I have already admitted that,
You have?
Yeah, I've said
In
it's down to
fairness.
35 pints, but even 35 pints is 5 free pints a day off the state.
Exactly.
And you can't. And how you can work that out as improving somebody's life or not,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yes. Well, I mean, a lot of people seem to be saying they should be spending it on food.
Yeah.
But if you give somebody who's an alcoholic a load of money, he's not going to spend it on food.
Of course he's not.
He's going to spend it on booze.
Of course he is. And why there is some special allowance given to people who've got a, so-called drink problem. No, I've got a drink problem. I can't get enough of it because, the sort of stuff I like to drink's quite expensive.
Yes. Always drink in moderation, of course.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Now, the reason we were playing there, My Baby Drives the Morning Train.
Takes the morning train. Yeah.
Is because Sheena Easton is 58 today.
Yeah.
And
she's starring in a West End
exactly.
musical,
She's making a huge comeback. Well, not a comeback. I mean, she's a bit like Cilla Black, really.
Yeah.
In the sense that started off as a sort of singer, and everybody thought she was a bit sort of fluffy and bubblegum and all that, and then developed a real talent for entertainment. Cilla Black certainly did, and I think Sheena Easton is now on the next stage of her career, which is starring in some West End productions.
Is she not in 42nd Street or something
is
like
it
that?
42nd Street?
I think it is.
Yeah,
the only reason I know that is not because I keep a close eye on these things, but it's partially because I saw an interview with her on, I think, one of the local news shows.
Oh, okay.
Because it's a massive show that she's taken over, and it's doing very well. And it was all about her relationship with Prince and how he kind of brought her back to,
that's right.
The public eye.
Yeah.
And amazing, really, that she's lasted as long as she has.
That's right. For your eyes only.
Yeah, that was a James Bond film.
That's right, that was her.
Vicky says this to me. Oi, MG, me and you are going to fall out if you carry on with your anti-Beatles chat.
Well,
More
there you
Beatles
go.
songs, please. No, I'm not anti-Beatles. I'm
You
just,
are a
I'm
bit.
Just, no, I'm not. I've told. Well, you've heard my fantastic rendition of "She Loves You," done at the age of about 4 years old in a Rothsey, booth, right?
So bad that we had to take down the audio off
people
Talk
loved
Sport,
it.
so you couldn't listen to it
No,
again.
people loved it. My point is that I've been a
again,
genuine Beatles fan since they were around.
Oh,
The first single my dad ever bought for me was "She Loves You" with "I'll Get You" on the B side.
Yes,
and I also got the first copy, which I still have, by the way, of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, the original album, which my dad bought me when it first came out.
Right, okay.
But, I mean, unfortunately, because of your incessant, repetitive Beatles propaganda, occasionally I have to stick a bit of a pin in it, which might make me sound anti-Beatles.
Yeah, well, it does. But
I'm not.
Now, I want to tell you about a great guy, right, who sadly died, but who made a huge and enormous contribution to this country.
Oh, yeah? Who's that?
His name is Max Hooper.
Max Hooper? I've heard that name before.
Have you?
Yeah.
Right.
What did he do?
He was the world's greatest expert on hedges.
Hedges?
Yes.
Okay.
And he wrote a book called Hooper's Hedgerow History Hypothesis.
Oh, very clever.
Yeah.
Lots of alliteration.
That's right. And it's largely kind of saved the planet a bit because it explained the value of hedges.
You haven't got a hedge, though, have you?
Have I got a hedge?
You haven't got a hedge.
Well, there's hedges in the grounds of
but it's not the same.
my stockbroker
But you haven't got
place.
a hedge around your roof garden, have you?
No, of course not. No.
But that's what I'm saying. You haven't. So you can't be a hedge expert.
But in the grounds of both my homes.
Yeah, but that's a shared area. That's a communal area.
Yeah, but I pay for the,
Well, so does everybody else.
Yeah, the gardeners to keep them in good shape. Anyway, listen, this. What he was very famous for, right, was helping the government introduce the hedgerow Regulations Act 1997. But before that...
If there's a bustle in your hedgerow.
Yes, that's right. Before that, he had invented the formula for good hedge husbandry.
Yes.
And that was that you take the age of the hedge times the number of species that live near it within the 100-yard radius of it to work out the naturalist equivalent of E equals MC2 to how long the hedge will last. Yeah.
MC squared.
MC squared, that's right. To work out how long the hedge will last, OK?
Well, how long does a hedge normally last?
It could be 60 or 70 years.
Yeah.
And it might wither.
What about the art of topiary?
No, he's not into that. He's not into shaping hedges.
Why not?
This is growing hedges.
Yeah,
now,
surely that's part of it, isn't it? Because you have to kind of cut them back.
No. Known for short as Hooper's rule, the formula holds that the age of a hedge is equal to the number of woody plant species counted in a 30-yard distance multiplied by 110 years. Now, establishing there was a connection between a hedge's age and the diversity of the species contained in that hedge was a matter of some urgency at the time of Hooper's discovery.
Right.
In 1965, because in 1965 hedgerows started to disappear rapidly. And nobody was exactly sure why.
Was that because they were getting into disrepair, or people were cutting them down?
After the Second World War, we needed to make the land more productive, and farmers started pulling hedges down. The Ministry of Agriculture, which was giving farmers grants to enlarge in their fields, was making them disappear.
Right.
And in 1 year alone, around about 1964, 1,000 miles of hedges disappeared, OK?
Yeah. Have anybody been putting them back? I grew up with a hedge in where I lived in Hampstead.
Yes.
Most of the roads, most of the houses would have like a wall.
That's right.
And then a hedge across the top of the wall.
That's what we had in Laurel Grove in Chester.
That's where we saw our first hedgehog, in fact.
Yes, right,
because he was walking along underneath the hedge.
Under the hedge,
on the wall.
Yeah, we had a brick wall around the edge of the garden.
That's right.
And then behind the brick wall, when the house was first built, you grew a hedge, and the hedge grew over the wall.
Exactly.
So what he did was he convinced the government to give him an RAF aeroplane with a trained photo reconnaissance crew.
Yeah.
Could have been your father.
Yeah.
Could have been your dad.
Well, he got a whole plane.
He got a whole plane. Yeah.
Who was this guy?
This guy, I'm telling you, he was the world's greatest authority on hedges.
Yeah, but he must have had some pull if he could get a plane from the RAF.
Well, I've just explained to you, 1,000 miles of hedges disappeared.
No, I know that.
So he goes to the Ministry of Agriculture.
But hang on, but I could go up to the Ministry of Agriculture and say, excuse me, I've just noticed there's 1,000 miles of hedgerows disappeared. Can I have a plane from the RAF? And they'd go, get lost, sling you up.
No, he got one. He got one because of his...
Well, that's what I'm saying. He must have had some pull.
Well, he was the world's biggest expert on hedges.
Yeah,
how many times am I going to tell you that?
How did anyone know that, though?
Because he'd written all these books about hedges, and he'd come up with the Hooper hedge theory about why hedges were disappearing.
Yeah.
So anyway, he goes along to an RAF base, climbs in, and wasn't your crazy old fella a spotter for the RAF?
He was not a spotter, no, he was a navigator.
I thought he looked down and he was a bomb aimer, wasn't he?
No, he was a navigator.
I thought he was a bomb aimer.
No, you see, you don't even listen to what it is that I tell you about my father, who was not a crazy old git, by the way.
Yeah, I didn't call him that.
You did.
Crazy old fella. I said.
Crazy old fella. Yeah, well, he wasn't that either.
Okay. Anyway, listen. So he then took the role of the bomb spotter, lying in the in the belly of the plane.
Yes.
And they flew him up and down the country.
Did he take pictures?
Yes, with reconnaissance crews. And photographed large stretches of the countryside. He then got the pictures developed, tracked the images down, and worked out that 10,000 miles of hedgerows were being lost each year from 1964 onwards, OK?
Well, so how did that change the structure of the hedges in this country?
Well, they stopped farmers ripping them up after that. He was further alarmed because the hedgerows were being grubbed out indiscriminately, regardless of age. Okay?
Yeah.
And he found out that bird and insect life was much better in an ancient hedge than a new hedge.
Well, that's good.
And he, in fact, found some hedges that went back to the 11th century.
Yeah.
So they were very old hedges.
Very good.
And they had sort of great birds' nests in them. To find out how many birds' nests there were...
Is there much more of this?
This is so interesting.
No, I've got a tweet here from Charles.
Yeah.
I'm hedging my bets. I'll be asleep soon.
No. To find out how many birds' nests there were in 1 mile of hedge, he walked for miles counting them.
Right.
And found out that birds were able to nest closer together as hedges were removed.
Wow. He sounds a bit of an obsessive, this bloke. What happened to him in the end?
Well, he's dead. That's what I'm telling you about him.
Okay, well, he's died recently.
Yeah, I'm reading out his... Well, I don't know, but I mean...
You don't know when he died?
Somebody sent me his obituary.
Oh, right.
Yeah, right.
Well, he must have died relatively recently, then.
What?
Relatively recently.
Yeah, relatively recently.
They found him in a hedge.
He was... He received the highest honour. He was an honorary fellow of the British Naturalists Association.
Right.
He was a big mate of Sir David Attenborough.
Okay.
He was always downplaying his work, but he revolutionised our understanding of hedgerows. His work was profound. He showed that not all hedges were equally valuable in terms of wildlife diversity. Okay? He, in fact, was, prone to making light of the usefulness of his formula, saying things such as, it's not much use on hedges but that are more than 1,000 years old.
Right.
He could be self-deprecating to a fault. He was a great guy, apparently.
Apparently
He had a pipe in his mouth all the time.
Did he?
Yeah.
Well, like he didn't set fire to anything.
What?
Like he didn't set fire to anything, hedgerow-wise.
I don't know.
Well,
honestly,
I'm fascinated
you're so
by
trite.
that. Thank you very much indeed. How about this from Lord Matthew? He says, can you give a shout-out to my girlfriend Kirsty and daughter Aria, first-time listeners?
Kirsty and Aria, I want to say welcome to the TalkSport family.
It's not usually that boring, by the way, both of you.
Excuse me, that was fascinating stuff. I think that's absolutely... People love that, you know. They love me to give them the detail on things that they've never even thought about. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, if you hadn't even thought about hedges, now you have. And as I said, if there's a bustle in your hedgerow, don't be alarmed.
Indeed.
This is TalkSport.
As your TV reviewer, I can reveal there are no plans for a new series.
Yeah, no, but wasn't there a previous series?
Oh, hang on, wait a minute. It says here there might be a new series. What's your problem?
That music can only mean one thing, of course. It is that Chucklevision, Porkyvision, is here for the week, and we haven't heard from you since same time last week, I guess. And I can't remember what you did last week.
Yes.
I can't remember if
Broadchurch.
you finished. I think you did finish Broadchurch.
Finished Broadchurch last week. Now, I've got to tell you about Line of Duty.
Line of Duty, yes.
I mean, this is a riveting programme, I have to say. Absolutely riveting, you know. And there's one episode left now, to 6.
Yes.
So it's all going to be revealed.
The denouement is upon us.
Denouement is upon us, yeah. But it's such a difficult plot to work out because the main star is Thania, you know, the actress Thania.
Yes.
Who plays...
Tandy.
Tandy
Newton, isn't it?
Tandy Newton, that's the one, Tandy Newton.
Yeah.
And she plays Ross, the Detective Chief Superintendent.
Right.
DCS, that's right, isn't it?
DCS,
yeah.
yes.
And that's a very senior role for a woman in that sort of role. Now, the thing is, I had to go back and watch the first episode, right, to find out what on earth is going on from the start.
Yes.
What happens is, there's a serial killer on the loose, okay?
Right.
Who has a habit of cutting up its victims and burying the body parts in Epping Forest, you know, and that sort of stuff.
I thought it was about corruption.
Well, this is what I'm telling you.
Yeah.
This is what I'm telling you. This guy's on the... Now, the squad investigating it always have a senior investigating officer who happens to be DCS Ross, okay?
Yes, right.
But for some unknown reason, she is shown in the show, but it's not apparent to her colleagues, she's manipulating evidence on this case.
Right.
And the big secret's going to be in the last episode, why is she doing this?
Is this the same woman from the other show, right? The Replacement or whatever it was called?
No.
Different woman.
The Replacement woman, right, now don't interrupt here, because DCS Ross...
trying to get clarification.
DCS Ross, somebody notices that she's manipulating it. So what they do is, the anti-corruption squad is called AC-12.
Right.
And AC-12 contains the officer you've just talked about, the woman from The Replacement.
Okay.
Right, who is now drafted into DC Ross to help, quotes, help her out by the chief constable, but she's an undercover AC-12 officer.
So they suspect she may be up to no good.
They suspect Ross might be, old DCS Ross.
Right.
Roz. Yeah. Might be up to no good.
Okay.
So they drift this other woman in, who's keeping an eye on things.
Yeah.
But it has now, the last episode is going to have to clear up a number of problems, and they are these.
Right.
That the way we've been driven in the first 5 episodes is that DC Roz is actually trying to protect her own husband, who is the serial killer.
Right.
And all sorts of clues are put into place about him being in certain places when killings have taken place.
Yes.
So is she protecting him?
Right.
And did she go to the forensic expert's home in the first episode where he was subsequently killed?
Yes.
Even though the shocking way the episode spilled out was that it looked like she was dead on the kitchen floor.
Right.
But as he was about to cut her up...
And so somebody's fingers are missing, aren't they?
Yeah, that's his fingers. Right. As he was about to cut her up with a circular saw, indicating that he's the man who's been chopping up these bodies, right? She wakes up, but we don't know what happened after that. That's never been revealed.
Right.
Except that he lost 3 of his fingers.
Sure.
Now, that wasn't because she pushed the circular saw back onto him. That's because he scratched her, and as a police officer, she knew to cut his fingers off so there would be no DNA under his fingernails, you see?
Yeah.
Now, the point is...
Did she take the fingers away then?
Well, they disappeared.
Oh, right.
Nobody knows. But now we've got to the penultimate episode.
Yeah.
She's actually gone and shopped her own husband.
Right.
So if for the last 5 episodes she's been a corrupt police officer manipulating evidence on the case she's investigating, why has she been doing it if not to protect her husband, who she has now shopped?
Right.
She has now literally rung up her own force and said, "You've got to come and arrest my husband." She actually gave him the warning and said, I warn you, anything you say will be taken down in evidence and all that.
Blimey.
But in between all that, you won't believe what's happened.
No, I can't.
She's had this wound on her wrist since episode 1.
You know, I saw something on Twitter about this, and apparently it's a really horrible and obvious wound, which nobody spotted.
No.
Is that true?
Started off as a cut.
Yeah.
So you're thinking that cut must have come from the circular saw that was being held over her in the first episode. And it still hasn't been explained how she got out of that.
Right.
This guy was kneeling across her body, was about to cut her up, and her eyes opened, and then suddenly he ends up dead, not her.
Right.
That's not been explained.
Okay.
That will have to be explained in the last episode, okay?
Right.
But this cut, nobody knows where it's come from, and why did it get so badly infected?
Yes.
It started off as a cut. Now, she wouldn't go to hospital, and you assume that is because there would then be a medical record of a doctor having to stitch up the cut, okay?
And because it looks like one of those MRSA kind of flesh-eating bug type things now, doesn't it?
Well, now you're ahead of yourself now.
Am I?
Because in each episode, the cut got worse.
Ah.
Now, in the penultimate episode, her husband even said, look, I'm sure that that's more than just a scratch.
Yeah.
The flesh is actually starting to smell.
Yeah.
So anyway, she goes in the bathroom with another bottle of chlorophyll or something like that, to try and douse it. But then she goes into like a coma because there's a banging on the bathroom door.
Yeah.
And when she opens it, the man there is the forensic expert that she killed.
What?
In the first episode.
Well, how's he there?
Well, it's a vision. She's,
I see.
Her head's gone because what's happening is...
It's a sort of Bobby in the shower moment.
Yeah, Bobby in the shower. But what's happened is this wound has now got so bad she's become delirious.
Well, it looks ridiculous. I mean, I wouldn't know how anybody could notice that.
But then the most shocking thing happens.
Yeah.
She wakes up in hospital and she's got one of those gowns on. She's in bed.
Yeah.
And her left hand is in a sling held upwards like this.
Right.
And the doctors, and she says, "What am I doing here? What's happened?" And they said, "Well, we had to give you some emergency treatment, And she says, "What, And they say, "We'll leave the room. Your husband wants to talk to you."
Right.
She then glances
cut
to
her arm off, have they?
Yes. She then glances to her left to find that the top half of her left hand has gone, left arm. So it's gone below the wrist where the wound was.
I bet she wishes she kept that guy's fingers now.
That's a bit stupid, isn't it?
No.
So anyway,
she would have had some fingers.
So anyway. She has now gone completely off a rocker.
Yeah.
She thinks her husband has deliberately cut her hand off. Because...
Is this the husband that she shopped?
Well, she hasn't shopped him yet, you see, at this point.
Okay.
So she's in hospital. He's visiting her twice a day. He comes to visit her in the afternoon. Not there. He says, "Where's she gone?"
Right.
They said she discharged herself. He said, "How could you let her out in her condition?"
Yeah.
She demanded, and all patients can discharge themselves. So she goes home. Then he comes home, and then she says, "You did this for my infidelity."
Yeah.
So she has had an affair with somebody.
Oh, right.
And we think the somebody is the assistant chief constable of the force who is also playing a double agent role.
Yeah.
Because on the one hand, he's pretending to be very supportive to her.
Yes.
In her, in her senior investigation officer of the killings.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, he's getting an insider at AC12 to give him secret information on what they found out about the inquiry.
It's not easy to follow this, is it?
It's not easy to follow.
No.
Not easy to follow. So what we're waiting for now is the final episode to find out who has she been trying to protect in the investigation? Why has she been manipulating evidence?
Yeah.
I mean, literally going into the store at the police station where she has exclusive access and taking pieces of evidence out and putting different pieces of evidence in.
Yes.
Blood samples and that sort of stuff, right? Why has she been doing all that? This is the vital question.
Yes.
And this is
will they get to the bottom of whatever the corruption scenario is, perhaps?
Of course they will.
Will they?
Of course they will. You see, she has definitely framed the guy they've got locked up for these killings.
Right.
And she would not admit it until the fact that more body parts were found in Epping Forest.
Yeah.
And they said, oh, they're not as badly decomposed as the first lot.
Yeah.
So everybody says it must be another body. No, what it was that it was another half of the same body, but kept in a freezer.
Oh,
so that's why it's not so badly exposed. But guess how the thing then unfolded? So she breathes a sigh of relief and says, so he did kill her then, and he couldn't have been in jail when the other murder took place. Guess what?
What?
When the second lot of body parts were thrown away in Epping Forest, they were wrapped in newspaper that had a date on them, which proved that the man that they've got locked up as the killer couldn't have done it.
Because it was after he'd already been put inside.
Indeed. So he couldn't...
So I'm quite good at this, aren't I?
Yeah, you're good at this,
I am.
So that is going to be a fantastic
and
finale.
when is the final episode?
I think it's on Sunday.
Is it Sunday?
It's on Sunday,
Because I nearly ended up seeing it, and I think it might have been Sunday night.
It's brilliant.
In fact, it was Sunday night because we came back from the trip to Scotland.
Yeah.
And I came home, and after we'd stopped off, we had a couple of drinks and a relatively quiet night.
That's right.
Because we were working in the morning. I came home and I switched it on.
That's right.
TV, and suddenly here was this show
it's
that you've
brilliant.
been going on about. I thought, well, I can't watch this one.
No,
because I'm going to have to watch it from the beginning.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Now, let's get to another show that started 2 nights ago.
Well, let me just make a quick correction from Ian in Shenzhen. It says it's DCI Ros Huntley.
That's what I said.
Not DC Ross.
I said Ros Huntley.
Did you?
Yeah, Ros Huntley. And it's not DCI. She's a superintendent.
DCI.
She's not an inspector. She's much higher than inspector.
All right.
So put that in your pipe and smoke it in Shengan.
Shenzhen, you're wrong, Ian, according to Porky.
In Shenzhen. Now, Little Boy Blue.
Yeah.
I mean, very hard to watch.
I bet.
Very, very hard to watch. You know, this is the tragic story of little Rhys Jones, 11-year-old boy, caught in the crossfire of a drugs gang and died in the most terrible circumstances. Yeah. But it's a brilliant production. It's very hard to watch. I remember his parents. I saw his parents at Anfield a few weeks later when, for the first time ever, Z-Cars was played at Anfield as a tribute to the loss that the family had suffered. It was terribly moving. But where this is going to develop over 4 episodes is the investigation into nailing the killers, OK?
Yeah.
Because a society closed itself down.
And so nobody wanted to
There are
tell
2
the cops.
societies here. There's
a shocking situation.
There's good Liverpool,
yeah.
and there's really scally, horrible, killing Liverpool.
Yeah.
And this great cop, has got to get through it all. But the cop's under such enormous pressure from his own chief constable, who says to him, "We've got to get a result on this. I've just had the Prime Minister on the phone."
Yeah.
And he said, "I don't care about the Prime Minister. What do you want me to bring you? False evidence?"
Yeah.
He said, "I let people go because I couldn't hold them because I didn't know, I didn't have enough evidence."
Yeah.
He said, we're talking about a closed community here.
Right.
When I've got the evidence, I'll bring it to you.
And did they ever get it?
Well, we've only seen the first episode. There's 4.
Okay.
And it's a female chief constable, and she's clearly a woman who's, risen to the top of her job and all that kind of stuff. But she's putting the pressure on this guy. You've got to bring me results. And he says, "I will do that when I can." He's just been promoted to detective chief superintendent.
So it's worth watching, in other words.
It's worth watching, but it's hard to watch.
I bet.
The grief of the parents and the way it wrecked the family is very, very hard to watch.
I'm sure it is.
Brilliant actors and actresses, I have to say.
Well, that was Porkyvision.
Yes.
Another one same time next week.
Yes.
Talk Sport.
Yes.
The 2 mics, simulcast across the UK on Talk Sport and Talk Radio.
Baby, you and I are not the same. You say you like the sun, I like the rain.
we are, the two mics. Coming up tomorrow, of course, it's Porky quiz time. And in honour of Anthony Joshua's big fight of the weekend against Klitschko, it's going to be on great heavyweights, just heavyweights really, from 1945 until now.
That's right.
So we'll see how that all goes.
Yeah.
Vicky says this, when Gorilla Man finishes the marathon, please get him on the show for a chat. I hope Porky the animal lover has donated cash to him. You've read about this guy. This is a guy who's crawling around the marathon route.
Well, the guy's a half-baked.
Well, he's trying to raise money for. He's trying to save money or raise money for the saving of gorillas.
Hasn't he got a job to go to when he's finished running the marathon on Sunday?
Well, he's not running it.
Sounds like an idle loafer.
He's still going. He managed. I think yesterday he was about halfway round.
Yeah, well,
he's crawling on his hands and knees.
Yeah, I'll apologise to him if he's not an idle loafer. But frankly, these stunts are just so.
It must be very difficult to crawl around 26-mile route in a road which is made of tarmac.
Years ago, when these marathons started, they were, purposeful, and people ran them because they thought it was a great challenge.
Yeah.
And
well, it still is a great challenge. Hasn't gone down.
They're now what they are now, Mike. Is what's that expression about posting notice that I'm a great person?
Oh yeah, virtue signalling.
Thank you. They're virtue signalling.
There is a bit of that.
They're all virtue signalling.
Yeah,
now.
but they also raise a lot of money for charity.
I mean, one year some guy walked around, didn't he, in a diving bell suit, and it took him weeks.
Yeah. He then went and did the same thing round the base of Loch Ness.
The base of Loch Ness?
Yeah, he walks around.
Inside Loch Ness?
Yeah, well, because it's a proper old-fashioned diving suit.
Yeah,
so he actually walks along the bed of Loch Ness.
And so this guy who's crawling around now on his hands and knees, fine, you do it, but I'm not supporting you, pal, honest to God.
You're so full of the joys of spring tonight, aren't you?
Pathetic. Look, if somebody came to me and said, can I have 150 quid for running the marathon? I'd say yes. Right. But I wouldn't wait for a week while they crawled around on their hands and knees. These people are just trying to attract attention to themselves.
All right.
Disgraceful.
Well, I'm sorry, Vicky. I guess that'll be a no then.
Yeah.
David says this man Hooper was holding back the country. All hedges needed to go for roads and motorways.
Yeah, well, there's an element of that.
There certainly is.
Certainly.
Jamie says, we've heard about the hedges. I just hope Porky won't bore us to death telling us next about Benson and Hedges.
Oh, I see. Yes,
right. A little joke.
Yeah, a little joke. Right, South Coast Superman says, any chance of a shout-out would be awesome to hear on the podcast. Probably be the only chance I'll be up when you're broadcasting for a while. Well, sorry, what do you want us to shout out, South Coast Superman? Do you want us just to say, hi, South Coast Superman?
Because we don't really do shout-outs as such.
Exactly.
Other shows do that. What we try to do is if somebody's listening and it's their birthday, we try and do that, but we try not to just do shout-outs as such.
Yes.
Sorry to disappoint you.
Somebody has sent a picture in of a model pig on 9th and 46th in New York City.
9th and 46th?
And said...
That used to be a bad place.
A very bad place.
Used to be terrible.
Yeah. What's Avenue of the Americas? That's 9th,
That's
isn't it?
6th.
That's 6th, that's right, yeah. So it's beyond that, yeah. I saw Porky in New York City the weekend. They show a picture of a little pig. Quite a cute little pig, actually. But, oh dear me. But nothing like me. Okay?
No, it looks. In fact, I tell you what it looks like. It looks like one of those inflatable balloon pigs that they have on the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade.
It looks like Pinky of Pinky and Perky.
It does a little bit, yeah.
Listen, talking about inflatables, by the way. Guess what I've come across? I've come across the inflatable bike.
The inflatable bike?
Yeah, a blow-up bike.
What, is it like a balloon bike?
It's in the back of a car.
Right.
Engineers at Ford have designed the inflatable frame of a bike to make it easier to stow cycles in a car boot.
What, so you can blow it up?
Yeah. The bike has a traditional rigid steering column, but the other parts of the frame, including the top tube, down tube and seat tube, are made from inflatable segments.
Really?
Yeah.
I suppose as long as they're hard on the outside.
Yeah, that's right.
That works, right?
The segments consist of 7 rubber tubes arranged in a petal shape, enclosed in a larger tube made from Kevlar, which becomes rigid when the inner tubes are inflated.
Right.
Boffists say the Kevlar sheath, the same material used in bulletproof vests, will be tough enough to stop the inflatable sections from being punctured. As the frame does not touch the ground, they say it will be less likely to come into contact with sharp objects anyway.
Although I was reading a story yesterday.
I'll show you a picture of it. Look.
In the Standard, right?
See?
Yeah, that's fine. But the problem is, right?
Yeah.
The problem with all that is how long does it take to inflate? And do you have to carry around one of those,
pumps?
Like one of those electrical pumps?
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Really fast?
Well, I don't know the answer to that one, do I?
Because you'd want to get that pumped up very quickly.
Yeah, you would. Yeah,
I suppose.
Yeah, I suppose you would. Yeah.
But I mean, what I was saying was that there was a piece in one of the papers yesterday. I think it was a Standard about how if you're a cyclist in London, you breathe in and absorb so many toxic actual pieces of air within seconds of cycling around the streets of London, which comes as no surprise to me because I've always said that.
Yes.
But again, you have to worry that it's a slightly kind of eco-terrorist type idea, where they say, well, this is why we have to reduce the emissions in London.
Well, why did we know about this years ago? Why does it all come out now? It's it's because people like the Mayor of London said he can't, said she's going to spend £700 million on more supercycle highway lanes in London, which are never used.
No, I know that.
They're used for about an hour a day.
Yeah, well, maybe 2.
And the rest of the time, it's just dead road space. And it's an utter disgrace. I mean, it's so incompetent. It's so dogma-driven. Yeah. It's so ridiculously anti-competitive in terms of the economy of great cities like London and Manchester and other places which are getting them. And these guys shouldn't be allowed to go around and destroy society like this. They're off their rockers.
Here's one from Jerry, who I think is in Arizona. He's just got back from dinner here in the States at P.F. Chang's Chinese restaurant, who are now serving Porky's favourite dish. And guess what? They've got the Kung Pao Dragon Roll.
Well, there you go.
Our signature California roll topped with seared ahi, sriracha, tempura crunch and peanuts.
Yeah, absolutely
Doesn't
great.
actually have real dragon in it.
Yeah.
And here's one from Ian in Shenzhen. Isn't the Gorilla Man a Met police officer? I don't know.
Isn't what, sorry?
The Gorilla Man. The man who's crawling around.
Oh, I've
in
no
gorilla
idea.
suit.
If he is, then he should be sacked from the police for, indulging in such a ridiculous exercise. To answer your question, a built-in pump in the car is used to inflate the frame until it is rigid, and a hand pump or pressurised canisters of carbon dioxide can also be used to top up the bike should it be needed while in use.
Yes. So I suppose that would be the inference is that it would be a sort of electrical pump then.
Yes, that's right.
Because there's nothing worse than having to pump up things by hand.
I agree.
Like lilos. I mean, it's like the bane of every parent's life.
Yes, I agree.
Blowing up, inflatable ducks, blowing up inflatable lilos when you go on holiday. And if you have a little electrical one, it's a lot better.
That's right. But it says here from the engineer, when inflated, the inflatable segment is sufficiently rigid to support the weight of the human cyclist.
Yeah.
The inflatable segment extended between the seat and the rear wheel. It's an amazing idea because, of course, you can just fold it up and put it in the boot. And I think the electrical pump is an attachment in the boot, in much the same way as you have.
Well, it's a good idea as long as it's not ludicrously expensive, I suppose.
Yeah, well, that's right. But, like now you have a cigar lighter, and we have had cigar lighters in... I wonder why
you can't get them now in cars, can you? I don't know. The last car I saw that had a cigarette lighter.
Yeah, but no, they were called cigar lighters. They were never called cigarette lighters.
Really? I used to call them cigarette lighters.
I used to call them cigar lighters because they were designed for a cigar for some unknown reason, because they started in things like Rolls Royces and Jaguars.
I suppose so, but then everybody had them.
Do you remember lighting your cigarette by one of those years ago?
Oh, totally, yeah. I also remember even more, because it was very painful, my ex-wife taking it out and lighting a cigarette with it and then sticking it on my knee.
Oh, yeah.
While I was driving.
Yeah, just for a bit of fun.
Well, no, she was annoyed with me for some reason.
Exactly,
so she went, and burned a hole in my trousers and burned a hole in my leg.
God, that's not very nice, is it?
It wasn't very nice, no.
Well, I told you about what happened to my mate. The end of his cigarette when he was driving and smoking. I was in the car with him.
Yeah.
The end of his cigarette fell off.
Fell off into between his legs.
And burned through his trousers into his penicular area. You know what I mean? No, seriously. He's... And you can imagine having that.
There's nothing worse.
Well,
but that was one of the great perils of smoking in a car.
Exactly. He was holding the steering wheel of the car.
You can't find
and
it.
we were veering from the fast lane to the slow lane through the middle lane because he was in agony because a part of his body, a very sensitive part of his body, was being burnt by the butter, the glowing red end of a cigarette.
Right.
And he was on fire. His clothes were smoking. I mean,
It's not pleasant.
It was terrifying for me.
Well, I think almost everyone who ever smoked...
I was in the passenger seat.
Almost everyone who's ever smoked in a car has had that happen to them. I've had all sorts of things. Like, when I was driving down a company car one time, chucked the cigarette out the window. Because I never used to use the ashtray, really. And it came back in. And ended up on the back seat. And I could smell this burning. But I was on a motorway at like 9 o'clock at night, doing about 90 miles an hour.
I know.
And I couldn't stop.
No, that's right.
But eventually I had to pull in because I thought,
it's going to blow up, yeah. Well, there was a rally driver once, very famously, who, for some mad reason, was smoking during the rally.
Right.
And they went round and he threw it out. It came right back and hit him in the eye, and he lost his eye.
God.
I mean, it was the idea of smoking and driving is so ludicrous these days.
Well, it's like everything.
How did anybody ever do it?
I mean, when I went to school on the tube, people used to smoke on the tube.
Yeah.
You might not remember that because by the time you came down, they probably stopped.
Yeah.
But it was the King's Cross fire that pretty much put an end to that.
Yeah.
But I mean, smoking in cinemas, smoking on planes.
Smoking everywhere.
It just sounds mad now, doesn't it?
It does. Sounds crazy.
It sounds completely mad.
Utterly crazy.
Now, I've got one birthday shout out. Michael has sent this. Can I have a birthday shout out? He's 26 today.
Right. 26, what's his name? Michael?
Michael,
happy 26th birthday, my boy.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Now, what I was going to say to you, we might try and get some guests on this later on.
Yes.
Apparently the guy that runs Google has been secretly building an airship.
Is this the flying car thing as well?
I don't think it's a flying car.
I think I read today Google will have flying cars by the year 2020.
No, that was Uber. Somebody said, Porky's ahead of the game again because
exactly.
you were suggesting that.
Exactly.
My argument with you, of course, is that they're not really flying cars. They're more like little helicopters.
Well, they go up in the air.
They go up in the air and they do fly. No, this is a completely different thing, apparently.
Okay.
He's trying to rebuild sort of something like the Hindenburg.
Oh, yes.
Except without the dangerous, inflammable gas.
The Hindenburg.
That used to used to power the Hindenburg and which basically led to it collapsing in a fireball.
Okay, yeah. And you think that's going to happen?
Well, I don't know. I just thought we might explore the possibility on one of these shows that we do from time to time. Because we're still trying to get the Yale professor on who thinks drinking is a very, very good idea. And we do hope still to be speaking to Sally Bedell-Smith, who's going to tell us all about Princess Diana.
That's right.
As soon as we can get her on the show.
Yes.
Which should be very soon.
Sooner rather than later, I hope.
All right. Yeah. That's it. We are the Two Mics.
Good.
Look at the light!
Don't forget to follow the Two Mics at the Two Mics on Twitter and on YouTube. Just look for Two Mics TV.
I don't want St Ives to be full of arty-tarty people who
but
go
it's
off
to
St Ives should be full of people getting bladderated on holiday.
No, not true.
And having a good time.
Incorrect.
Not a load of cultural nerds who go there to look at some junk,
you
which is described as sculpture.
But you don't live in St Ives.
Yeah, but I go there on holiday. I don't want to be bumping into all these, sort of highly intellectual people who literally walk around the Tate Gallery looking at bits of junk described as sculpture. It shouldn't happen in St Ives.
You're such a Philistine.
No.
What, has she been arrested?
No, she wouldn't have been arrested. I'd have made sure of that, I'd have bribed the guard not to arrest her.
Okay. So you could have both ended up in the slammer.
No, not at all. But I mean...
Very irresponsible.
And I'm not suggesting for a moment that guards on Virgin trains are resort to bribery from passengers.
That would be wrong.
Under any circumstances whatsoever.
That would be very wrong.
If you love the Two Mics podcast, you'll love the live show. Weekday overnights from 1am on DAB Digital Radio and 1089 and 1053 AM and via the TalkSport app. TalkSport, your Premier League station with exclusive commentaries every weekend.
What an absolute corker!
TalkSport.
Hey, what do you do when you're in your car and you pull up behind some guy who's got a baby on board sign in the back?
Well, what do you mean? What do I do?
Well, if